There's two kinds of people. An animal, aggressive as hell, banging the head in the bar, and then they're gone. Then there's the overthinker, and they're the person that can tell you every PR, foam rolling. They're in the gym for like 45 minutes, at the squat bar. But I find that neither one of those guys are the best.
It's time to sit down, keep it real, and cut the bullshit. Welcome to Table Talk. Jon Grove, I've been looking forward to this one since we spoke at Lore's Meet forever ago, like a year ago.
Likewise.
First question I have for you, and you got to pay attention here, is was it all worth it? Because you've spent 20 years competing, and now you're kind of like I am. You're further removed. We've paid the price for all that. And the easy thing is just to say, was it all worth it? Then the answer is, oh yeah, of course. But when I throw in all, that changes the context.
So you want me to actually take all into consideration? The word all? Like not being married anymore? And
yes.
It wasn't all worth it. But man, I love the ride.
Yeah.
I love the ride, man.
Well, you started at a young age, and so did I. And part of the drive why I kept doing it was I wanted to prove everybody wrong. So that was like the first initial drive, is all the people that said, I was stupid, retarded, all those other type of things. There was that group. Then there was the people that said, well, you can never make it to the nationals or whatever. Then there's that group. Then there's all the other people that, well, you won't bench 5. And there are people that say that you will. But it's like this big fucking drive to prove them all wrong. And then you realize during that time period that that's not easy to do. Like, this is not an easy endeavor, and one little mistake and there's this giant fall, and then you're back up and you just keep going again. And looking all back at it, the prize, right? It's a fucking plastic trophy. It's maybe if you're lucky, it was like a sculpture trophy.
Yeah, but maybe also the prize was, and maybe it's a prize, but your identity. It's who you are.
Yeah, it's a huge part.
It's who you are right now. Again, I'll quote Gary Frank on this. Gary called us lifers. You're lifers, man. And I said, well, I thought that was kind of ironic because Gary's worked at a prison forever. And he used that term, but he's right. He said, John, we're lifers, bro. He said, we're in this for life. Even if our bodies can't do it anymore, we're going to keep training and figuring it out, or we're going to do something related to it. We're going to promote competitions. We're going to have a gym and a team. And so, so I don't know. Did I take that off already?
Well, it's a little different because today, right?
Right. Because
the people that were trying to advise us as we were coming up, right? We're not going to listen. It's just like, fuck off, shut up. You haven't. And so I still understand that because I was that way. Yeah. But those people that came before us didn't have as much to offer as what we do now. And I don't say that in a derogatory way. They were offering the best that they possibly could. But now we know more, based upon just training techniques and things that we've seen, to be able to, because that all that we're talking about, the things that you'd go back and, yeah, there would be things I would go back and change, and it wouldn't change the context. It wouldn't change anything else. It probably would have actually helped. That we're able to advise the younger people, and I think that has been happening, which is why we see stronger and stronger lifters today. Right. But there's still a whole handful of them that are thinking the way that we used to think. A great example of this would be PEDs. Right? Because all the information that's out there now on PEDs, like when you were coming up, did you know that, did you really know that some people were genetically going to get more out of them than others?
No, I don't think so. No.
So our answer was, they're better because they're taking more shit, so I got to take more shit. So then the dose just becomes higher, where the kids today, or the younger ones today, are like, and I did know, some people that I always thought they were lying. You know, I just take 2 cc's, 3 cc's a test, and they're just responding like crazy.
Yeah.
And it probably was true.
Yeah. I mean, we know that now, so it's hard to go back and remember that. Yeah. You always thought they were just
lying.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes people do.
Oh yeah.
I never really understood that either, by the way. I never understood why. I don't even understand the current, like, natty or not thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like that whole fascination online. I'm going a different direction. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But I don't understand, like, to me, it's like, well, of course, this is me. I never saw a single reason or a single thought in my young brain that would not have done that, by the way. Like, I didn't even consider, I do now for young people. I do now. I went a different direction. You know, I took this a different direction. I'm sorry. But I really never thought, like, to me, it was like a better knee wrap. It was like a better squat suit. It's like, I wanted to lift the most weight I could lift, and I was going to do that any way I could do it. It didn't matter to me.
So how were you introduced? Because it was young. Because I think I read that your parents found your shit, made you throw it away. The same thing happened to me, by the way, and made you throw it away. And then and that was young.
That was a traumatizing experience. Not my parents catching me,
but having to throw away the shit.
Watching my mom and dad take the last bottle of Syntex American Anadrol with my favorite number 2902 imprinted on the NDC number printed on the tablet, and I think my dad flushed them, and I watched my dad take a pair of pliers and break 15 Duratest and ampules right from Argentina in the garbage can. But the next morning when I woke up, I was able to draw out some out of the part that broke off. But but I had to go empty my savings account and go rebuy those Duratests and to get ready for the APF Teenage Nationals. In the meantime, I did promise my mother that I would never take them again if she buy my airline ticket to the Teenage Nationals. So I got an airline ticket to the Teenage Nationals, went and bought my Duratestin again. Did never get American Anadrol back again. And went to the meet. Yeah, I was pretty young.
So how were you introduced?
So, you know,
because this is a different time, right? Because this is before the whole Mexican thing happened. This is where, if you were to get it, it was somebody getting it from a pharmacy or from a pharmaceutical warehouse.
So I kind of missed that time. You got me by a couple years, only a couple years. We're might as well be the same age, but it had just started to dry up. So I was in that era of Steris and Gold Line counterfeits.
Oh shit!
Where you look at it and the labels would all be printed in the same color ink and all be the same direction.
It'd have the C2 instead of C3.
The one that I had a NCD number on it one time, and national code drug, I guess, I don't know, but yeah. So that was no. So I had these. So I was training with, and these are things that I think were great, but maybe not great in every aspect. My parents would have probably agree with that. But so when you're a 17-year-old kid and you're training with 28-year-old guys, a crew of 3 or 4 guys who weren't powerlifters, they were just dudes that worked at strip clubs. They were bouncers. They were just some guys sold stuff, man. Yeah. And hey, John Boy, as he used to say, you big pie head, come over here. He goes, we need to get you on some. You need to get some stuff. And my thought legitimately was, well, yeah, of course. Like, what should I take? Like, there wasn't a thought of, well, could this damage my health someday, or what if I have heart issues, or what if maybe I should hold off for 10 years so I could build my natural base and build my technique. Now, I have said this. I have said that I can take a young person right this very moment, and I can make them far stronger than I ever was without drugs. Mm-hmm. So what I just said is a kid's way of thinking, but they're like, so the guys, it was a non-issue. I was 17 years old. I'd already bought my first Anadrol. I bought 15 American Anadrol, and they were sitting, and I'd already signed up and just training for a NASA meet.
Were you powerlifting before this?
Yeah, I'd done. Yeah. So by the way, I do think that's actually moderately important. I'm not gonna say it's an end all be all, but sometimes you've known these guys. They either don't train at all hard or at all, or they don't compete. They didn't compete. They didn't train. They never fell in love with the sport first. It was all about it was like they take drugs and go compete. I don't think it's an end all be all. Like I don't think you can certainly do it the other way, but I am glad for me that I got meets under my belt that were just the love for the sport before I, a year later.
Yeah. Well, it kind of makes sense though, because you can equate, and some people will equate one with the other.
Yeah.
Like I can't compete unless I'm using something.
Yeah.
And then when they stop competing, I think that would be a good thing. When they stop competing, they would quit using, which could kind of be a good thing. So I kind of contradicted myself there, just thinking that through. But they don't anyhow continue. So you had a few meets.
Yes. So I done my first two meets. I had some cool memories. Like for example, my first meet, which was just a Georgia teenage USPF state meet, Passanella was there giving out the trophies, and that was in March of 1990. He died in July of 1990, I think. So, and that's a whole nother topic. You got to keep me on target because I'll stray, but.
No, but he's an important person to speak about because that was one of the guys that I looked up to.
Well, he was one of the, I mean, you always think about these things that are irrelevant to think about, like what ifs. The what ifs that don't matter. Yeah. Like, what if 28-year-old Dave Passanella that just done 2458 total, that just squatted 1030? What if he lived to 32? Yeah. First of all, you never would have heard of Scott Warman or Russ Barlow was the first man to win a 308 class division when they just started that division. So Passanella, when I saw him at my first competition, and he was giving out trophies, they had introduced the 308 weight class, the APF, for the next year. And he was always like a 290 guy cut down to 75s. Well, he wasn't a 290 guy when he handed out trophies that year. He was like 305, and he was doing mega numbers. He was getting so strong. And I mean, there are stories about him doing insane stuff, and he was about to put the 308 class somewhere special.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that because he was a 75. So.
Yeah, a dieted down, starved 75.
Yeah,
and the guy had hips and legs that weighed 275 pounds. But it was cool. I had the video of him handing my trophy. I was 177 pounds, and I used to be on my master video. My parents brought their big Panasonic VHS camera, and they recorded my lifts. And I let Tommy Fannin, when we were training together for all those years, I let him borrow that tape one day, and he, typical Tommy fashion, he lost it. So I have my masters of just mine. Like I edited mine off, so I have my lifts, but I don't have all the in between stuff my parents filmed other guys lifting. But I love that video of Passanella handing me that trophy. But, so 2 weeks later was actually Passanella's USPF Georgia State meet, not teenage. So I did my second competition was at Georgia Tech. He hosted it, and that was a who's who that year. You got to think of Georgia Powerlifting back then, and you remember this. Back then, all the big guys in the state all did the state meet. They weren't too good for the state meet. It was a USPF state meet. George Herring lifted, but I think Buddy Duke might have lifted. Curtis Leslie, all the guys at Curtis, Rich Ludy.
Well, that's how they qualified for the nationals, right? Because unless you were top two, you had to requalify each year.
I don't remember that because I by time I would have been lifting at nationals. I was going to the APF, and you could be right. Yeah, because it was strict like that. It was qualify, go to USPF, because your whole pathway for most people was trying to get to the IPF World. So so it was kind of cool. So that was a neat meet too. That was 2 weeks later, and I weighed in at a whopping 179, 2 pounds heavier than 2 weeks earlier. And then I waited it out 6 months, got my training in order, and I signed up for a Natural Athlete Strength Association meet. Though I'd already just bought my Anadrol, I was waiting. It was waiting in the wings, but I was holding off. And I bombed out of that meet. So I was already going to be that was like the final nail in the coffin. That was never going to change anyway. But I missed my bench 3 times. And Curtis Leslie was sitting behind my mom and dad. They're like, "Oh, does he get to lift and deadlift?" And he said, "Nah, he's over." But everybody bombs. It's normal. Tell him not to shake it off. So 2 weeks later, I went to a meet in Macon. 2 weeks on Anadrol, and I went from 184 to 192 pounds, and I benched 290. I bombed out at 275 at that NASA meet. I benched 290 3 for 3, and I pulled 540. And there was no turning back.
Yeah. How frequently were you competing after that? Did you still stay at that same rate?
Yeah, we did. I did a lot of meets. That's the thing I sent you was because open powerlifting does you and I justice. I'm sure you have a ton of meets on there, right?
Yeah. And
so I was thinking to myself, like, man, there's so many meets in those early years that aren't on there, and they're in powerlifting. Say I can go find them. They exist, but Murfreesboro, Tennessee, Huntsville, Alabama. My friend John and I, my training partner at the time, and my best friend, we were cutting our teeth together in the sport. He was the genetically worst. He was 6'5" with like long, thin legs at 38-inch inseam. But he was always there for me, my training partner for years, and we would just go to meets. I hadn't learned yet how to train for a meet. We would just train and then go to a meet.
That's kind of how I was doing it. I wonder sometimes that, given the age, because that matters as well, that, man, I probably competed 30, 40 times, in the first few years. So you learn how to compete. It's not a good way to peak.
You had guys, you had some lifters that were there, helping you out. They're actually competitors, right?
Yeah. But I would also meet people at these meets too, because in Ohio we had Black's Health World and this Westside Barbell and all those. I was learning more in the warm-up rooms of meets, just on technique and shit like that, than in the gym. But just learning how to compete. And the reason why I'm pausing is because at some point we went from a round robin to this round system. So right when you start to figure out how to work this round robin, this other system comes into play. Which
I missed that. I'm very familiar with it, but wow, that would have been very challenging for the weakest or the strongest guy in the competition.
It was a little fucked up when I started, because one of my first meets, my squat opener was like 400. Then I think I went to 440, then 480. Then Laura Dodd opened with like 500. And I'm like, whoa, what kind of sport did I get myself into? But over time, there was a strategy there to where I was entering some meets and I wasn't even lifting in them. I was just calling the opener to be able to give the guy who's opening at 700 right. a little more time, before that. And then it worked for the squat, but then you bomb out. But the bench, nobody had a problem, but I believe one of Matt Dimmel's first 1,000-pound squats, he had to follow himself 3 times. And I believe it was a 3-minute rule.
Well, not that I need to spell out powerlifting history, but to me, the most badass squat ever made was I know you know this, it's like a famous story, is the Lee Moran 1,000-pound squat.
Yeah.
Where he opened up and passed out. And then
he had to follow himself too, right?
He had to follow himself. So they had to give him ammonia. You got 1 minute, 3 minutes and 1 minute. They got him back up. They rewrap him. He goes back. He squats 942. Waddington gets his opener a 953 in. Moran takes 1,003, and they didn't load the bar right, and it flipped the bar, and it threw a 100-pound plate 20 feet in the air, and people were running. Mm-hmm. And then of course they give him a 4th tip. I think Waddington I think he took 1,003 or a 981 or something, missed it. He missed 2 other lifts on depth, I think. But Moran had to follow himself again for the 4th attempt of the day, walked out 1,003 and dunked it in a legit squat. And so I only bring that up because powerlifting history is cool, and those 2 guys were legends.
Oh,
do you ever meet Waddington?
Yeah. He used to compete in the same thing that you're talking about. When they got to qualify, or for a while he was kind of interchangeably, I think, a little bit with Blacks because he was in Sandusky. But yeah, I saw him and Dylan both compete. When the same meets, I'm like, man, the squat is the fucking shit. I've always loved the squat, and I try to figure out where this all comes from. Yeah, but those were impressive fucking lifts, man.
Those guys were like,
yeah.
So So that was the old system, and I always, when I think of how hard that was, you got to experience it, but I think of it when I think of that video of those guys following each other and passing out, and they got oxygen,
Yeah.
we all, I used oxygen too, but they got oxygen tanks, and they got there was somebody's rapping him, he's gasping, and then 1 minute, and you get him up there just in time to walk out 1,000 again. It's just insane,
Are you feeling like you're not the man you're supposed to be? Low confidence, negative thoughts polluting your brain. That's me. I get it. I've been dealing with messed up hormones most of my life. A couple years I hooked up with Merrick Health, and it was one of the best things that I ever did. They're a health optimization platform that does advanced lab works and goes deeper than probably what you've ever seen before. What you'll get with Merrick Health is they have guided optimization and the self-service diagnosis. I personally have been using the guided optimization for the whole time I've been with him. Dry is my health coach. He does an amazing job. The second route that they have is the self-service diagnostics. This is just a DIY with your own health journey. You just head over to Merrick Health, pick the panel, and they'll send you the report. You just kind of go from there. Either way, I highly recommend them, and you can get 10% off right now. Just head over to merrickhealth.com and use the code TABLETALK at checkout. What's crazy because of that, it's definitely under 5 minutes. Like if they're working it or whatever, it's still under 5 minutes, right? I'm pretty sure it was 3.
Yeah.
And not to bash on, I'll hear lifters today bitch because they don't have 10 minutes. And I'm like, the all-time world records, man, were set, with 3-minute time periods.
Well, yeah, you're doing a rules briefing, and you say like, okay, guys, I give you a choice. We got 13 lifters. We can do 6 to 7, or we could do all 13 through. And they're like anyway, if you get people just complain, everybody's got something to complain about it's either too fast or it's too slow, but there was a time, and I don't want to be this guy. These kids these days, I think everybody's got that to say. But there was a time when you did things like you went to a meet, you planned on squatting. Your goal for that meet was to squat 800. They were calling depth hard that day. It took you 3 times to get your opener, and at 740, you finally ground out your opener, and you just sucked it up to like, that's what I got today. And you went on, you benched, and you deadlifted and hoped to put a good total together. It wasn't, everything in the world didn't rely on that. You were a little upset, you're calling strict, but there was a time when you had to kind of go with the flow of the way the meet was running.
Oh, you had to forget about it, man, because you're pissed.
Done. It wasn't your last meet, probably. Like, it wasn't like your last meet. In fact, I think sometimes people train for a meet. Maybe they want the experience or something, and they think it's all going to be today at this meet. It all builds up, and it didn't go the way I wanted. Well, I'd probably be here to say that go ahead and plan for like 85 to 90% of the meets you ever trained for not going the way you.
Oh yeah, I mean it's
maybe more. Maybe my percentage is probably off.
Okay, I can think back to maybe 3 meets that exceeded met or exceeded my expectations, and that's out of probably 80.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I had that thought last couple of days. I was thinking about that. I was just thinking about things about our talk and everything, and I thought, how many meets could I think of where things went not like as I planned? Almost never, but maybe a little better even. Like you couldn't even believe. You look back, you're like, dude, like in reality, you shouldn't go 9 for 9, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you do it, I had a couple 9 for 9 meets that were like, there were those meets. There's only two. I can only think it's out of 50, probably about 58 meets. That I can think of 2 times that I actually come away thinking, holy shit, where'd that come from? I had another 20 pounds in me.
Usually after one of your worst training cycles ever too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, not only that, but I know it's exactly what you're saying, but did you ever notice how your bench is killing it? I used to make this comment. I'd say, what's weird is like people say, well, how do you get your lifts to go up? And so on. I say, well, man, here's the thing. I always got one that's going fucking awesome. And then I got one that's going like, okay, but it's not great, and then I got one that's just way the fuck off. It always seemed like there was, and it could change mid training cycle. It could train the next meet. It could be something different, and none of that even related to the competition. Because what you just said is almost always that scenario would have been that the one you were doing shitty on was the one you had the best lift in, and the one you're gonna kill is the one you got 1 for 3. So yeah, very unpredictable. That's why I kind of have some respect. Why I have a lot of respect for these people, but I have Cone was so good at going like 8 for 9, 7 for 9 for 9. I mean, every once in a while you get one of those guys. I wasn't one of them. I was the gym guy. I put all my energy in the gym. Unfortunately, I left all my heavy lifts in the gym. I probably like training more than competing, but you know, the guys. There's only a few people that can do that. But to master that and keep your ego in check and pick the numbers right. Yeah, you know, it's pretty hard in powerlifting. That's a skill somebody has to really work on. Yeah. And
do you think the younger lifters should compete more frequently?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I also, you know, I was thinking about this on the drive over here too. I was thinking about my favorite thing to, you know, fuck with people about when they say, you know, say you do a contest, you know, this dialogue. It always starts off as, yeah, I do powerlifting. You're like, oh, cool. Have you done some competitions? No, not yet, but I'm, oh, okay. So you don't really do powerlifting yet? And they're like, well, no, I do the power lifts. I said, oh, you do the power lifts. So you squat, bench, and deadlift. I get it. That's cool. You think about competing? Yeah, I just want, you know, you heard, we've all heard this. I'm just saying online, everybody says, you just want to get my lifts up a little bit. Up to what? I just want to get a little stronger. I go, you see that girl up there? She's a 97-pound weight class. She did her first meet 6 months ago. So her total is actually, yours is 0. So right now, your best total is 0. She did 520 in a total. So she's actually got a 520-pound higher total than you do. So until you actually do a meet, you have a 0 total. So how much stronger you need to get? Do a meet, dude. Yeah. And then when that meet's over, you know what nobody does anymore? And you tell me if you ever did this. I know you did it because you just said you did. 30, 60 meets or something, early, 30 meets like in early years. Man, we used to go to meets like back-to-back weekends, or even like 2 in a month for sure. And the way I would look at it, if you were peaked, whatever that even means, but if I had trained for a competition and I didn't get the lift, like I went to the WPC Junior Worlds and I squat 804 and I didn't get the 804, so I squatted him. I missed. They called me on depth. Yeah. Though I have that video and it looks good to me, but I'm not playing that game. That was in the last week of November. Now mid early November. So I rode out to Adel. Adel comes up every year at the Buddy Dukes meet. Everyone in South Georgia. I went down there and I want to get that 800 in. So I went down squat 810. It was a few weeks later, and you're like, I'm not going to go through a whole other training cycle. I could, but why not?
Yeah, well, it gets harder the older you get.
Yeah, and the stronger you get. Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. Actually, getting 3 lifts in the same day, doing the triathlon of strength in the same day as you get older becomes the challenge.
Yeah. With how long did it take you to qualify for the nationals? Because when you were coming up through, it would have been an elite total was what qualified, right? Do you remember the day you qualified?
No, I don't actually remember. I don't know if I qualified. Did they even check qualifications really?
Well, they did when I was coming up because God damn, I was training for three, maybe 4 years just for that 1940 or whatever it was.
Because it used to be you could go, well, and this is where it all changed. In that time frame, you were right on the cusp there where you used to have to do the junior nationals. Guys would do.
Yeah, it had to be a state meet or the junior nationals to qualify.
But then later on, junior nationals became an age category. It was 2023, but it used to be it was junior nationals or senior nationals. If you weren't good enough yet to lift the senior nationals, you did the junior nationals. Mm-hmm. But I don't remember. I really don't remember. I had an elite total already. I definitely did. Yeah. But we either did. USPF or APF wasn't in Georgia really, So I would do USPF meets around the state because that's all there was. And then Tommy and I just went to the first senior nationals in '95, and I don't actually see. It sounds like you were actually excited.
Oh God, I was training for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I wanted to qualify. I wanted to go to the next level.
Yeah.
That stupid movie, The Program. I wanted my place at the table.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the juniors kind of came in there in a weird place. It was after I tore my pec, went to Westside, and it was the first meet back from the pec tear. And I never did the juniors before. Never did it after, because I cut down and then gained like 38 pounds on a recomp, and fucking squat suit didn't fit. It was just a disaster of a meet. And I'm like, fuck this, let's just go seniors.
So you did was your qualifying meet then at an APF meet?
Yeah.
It had to be.
Yeah.
Okay. Man, was it, what meet was it?
It was like an Indiana or Ohio State meet, something like that.
Okay.
It had to be in front of judges, like
check,
national judges or something.
They checked after a while. I mean, I don't think they checked this stuff.
They probably didn't even check when I was doing it. I just assumed. Now that I'm thinking back, I can guarantee nobody was checking. Just sign it. They're going to take your money. I mean, now that we know more about the sport.
So that was not. So that was my. So it's kind of weird, I looked at yours and have all your meets, of course, but I was thinking like we had to have lifted in the same competitions a bunch. And then I realized that some strange coincidence, like, for example, 8 days out from the APF seniors in Atlanta in '96, my hometown, Gene Wojcik, Curtis's girlfriend, had given me a hotel room for free. And, anyway.
Oh, I remember those seniors very well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you've been both of them, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Fuck those.
Well, yeah, that was them trying to make a political change.
It was a recalibration. You know what happened, and we should have known.
What?
The seniors the year before, shit was getting passed that shouldn't. And God, I think everybody from Westside bombed out except Chuck, Kenny Patterson, and maybe Rob Fuzz, and all they got were their openers.
Yeah, is that '97 or is it '96? Because '96 is when Goggins and Wessels went head to head. 10:30. Yeah, he went 10:32, and it came down to Wessels benched a big bench, like a 661 or something, and it came down to the deadlift. And I remember the one where Goggins actually pulled. They called him on not locking his knees, so he came back and he actually pulled it and he locked it out. That's like 8:32 for the win, and he held it. He looked at the judge. He goes, "Is that good? Is that good?" Being cocky and put it down, but that was in '96. That's the one I'd torn my lat 8 days prior to the meet. Tommy and I didn't always train so smart. We trained hard, real crazy hard, but we go up and do stuff like 525 bent rows for 5 and stuff. And so my idea of going light 8 days out for the meet was just going to like 395 for some, like I said, 5 or 8 reps on a bent over row. We don't know why, looking back.
Sure.
Because it was only 395, I guess. And I tore my lat, and so I didn't lift to that, but you did. And then in '97, I think that's when I had a thigh compartment syndrome. So I was in the hospital for a week. And I missed the seniors, but I was training for that, and I just kept beating the same injury over and over again, and trying to over the next 7, 8, 9 days, I'd try to get it to, I'd be stimming it and get massage and ultrasound, and I'd get another. I just kept sticking with my training cycle. I had to do it, and I'd tear it again, and wait. I'm gonna wait a week and a half. And anyway, I finally did something bad, and ended up in the hospital with a thing called thigh compartment syndrome, which is pretty serious. They cut your leg down about 18 inches on your thigh, and they basically leave your leg filleted open in a hospital bed. Do a fasciotomy, and it's a pretty nasty thing. But so I did the IPA seniors in '97, and so all I was looking at, my whole point going way back, that whatever I started with, was that you and I in that era, we like did different meets. Like we both did 95. I didn't lift in '94 APF seniors, but you did. I think '94. That's when you bombed.
Was that Dallas?
No, that was '95. '94 would have been in Philadelphia, maybe. Jerry O'Brien lifted that year.
Yeah.
You were behind Doug Borden that year, I think.
Yeah.
Or maybe that was 95. Anyway, doesn't matter. But 95, we both lifted. In 96, I'd torn my lat. I was there. I didn't lift. 97, I lifted in the IPA seniors and won the IPA seniors that year. That was the year that Glenn Shabbat, Shabo, whatever his name is.
Shabbat. I can't remember. Yeah.
That was the year he'd benched to 700, and it was a good year. Dan Kovacs did a 24 punch roll that year. It was a big year. Mike Ruggiero was there, a bunch of guys, but I won that year. But my point of this was that you and I never made the same meets. Like I was always and then in 98, you lifted at the IPA seniors, New Carrollton, Maryland, the same place that mine was. But the year that I lifted, you lifted in the APF seniors. And so I didn't go to the IPA in 98, but you did. So
yeah, somewhere around that time we had this split, and it might've been after the 2 Atlanta seniors where Louis like, fuck the APF, we're going to go IPA. And that's right around when the WPO was starting. And so half of the gym basically said, fuck you to Louis, we're going to go this way because we want to do the WPO. And then the other half said, we're going to go where you want to go, to the IPA. And that's the route that I went, which I wish I didn't, because getting into the whole thing after my time with the USPF, which was short because the APF was just kind of founded. Once I got into the APF, all I ever wanted to do was to win the seniors and to qualify for the worlds. And now I'm in this position where let's go to the IPA. And I'm like, cool, they got a seniors, they got a worlds, but not really. The IPA worlds that I won, I think there were 8 people in the class, and they were all from the East Coast. It wasn't like the WPC worlds.
I'd point behind it. But something coming to my mind, but I guess continue.
So it was an interesting time just because of that, right? We had a lot of dynamics going on in the gym, but it also helped a lot because in any gym, and you had yours for a long time, you kind of, for lack of a better way to explain it, you got A lifters and you got B lifters, right? And then if all the A lifters are going to a big meet, the B lifters sometimes aren't the best to help them. Now, when you split the A lifters and half of them are going APF and the other half are going IPA, now you got A lifters helping the A lifters, which is a whole different fucking game because they understand, what jumps you can do, what you shouldn't be able to do, it's more, the A lifters are better at keeping the stress low and keeping the fucktards away, where the B lifters are more about, let's see how hyped we can get you. And how tight the knee wraps can, it's all excessive.
No, of course you want the best, the most qualified best guys being your handlers too.
Yeah. Well, it's a crazy fucking learning curve because we're all like this super obsessive type of thing until you realize that doesn't work. I got to be obsessive, but just one notch down.
Yeah. I was curious about though, which I'm jumping around, but I was thinking about the first WPO in Ormond Beach that I did. That was the first one ever, and I don't think Westside was present there in any capacity.
Nope.
But it was such a build up. Karen built that up. You saw the magazines, they had all the pictures of, it was like, it was every month in Powerlifting there was the article about Karen talking about this big plan, professional powerlifting, guys making money, And so why didn't Westside show up there?
Because of that. Because that would have been right after when Louis said, screw all this. Yeah. So nobody at that time wanted, because they didn't know, right? Then after that one, I think it went to the Hard Rock in Florida, right, and Disney. Then, that's when they started moving and going over.
Yeah. That was a stack. That was a stack contest.
Yeah, that was a big contest, man. That's when Ano really came on the scene, and like,
that's where I did my actually best ever total. But that was one of those classics. Another thing young lifters don't get to experience, by the way.
That was your best ever total?
Yeah.
You had to hike like an hour just to fucking get there, right?
Well, so we had to meet a bus over by a mall, and it was like a mall that had, entrance on both ends.
Yeah.
And we see this dude hanging out on one of the ends, and either we were on the wrong end or he was, but it was Donnie Thompson. He was in the B flight, so he wasn't, his qualifying numbers weren't high enough to be in our flight. Donnie Thompson.
Yeah.
So I remember like looking up, I didn't know who he was, it's funny years later, it's Donnie Thompson, but we gave him a ride over to the other end of the mall, and then the bus picked us up, and you had to have clear bags they could see when you went to the park, from the back. And it went into the Universal Studios, and then you got there, and Karen, again, all his intentions were always for powerlifting, so I always give credit for that. But he had like exhibitions for everything, dancing, girls, karate. I mean, it was I don't even remember what it all was.
Yeah.
But I probably got there at, I don't know, say 8 or 9 in the morning, and they had to by contract be out of there by 3 a.m. And at 3
a.m., man, the meet's still going on.
Still going on. And so he goes back. He says, "Hey guys, we gotta hurry these deadlifts."
Yeah, yeah.
So I was pulling my last deadlift about 3 a.m. and he had so many things in between, and all day you're not really eating like you want because you're not sure when am I gonna lift, because one of these dancing things is gonna be over. And so I finally went upstairs and sat down at the bar and had a burger at Hard Rock Cafe. Came back down, but it was he was still learning. And,
that was one I was so happy I was not lifting in.
Yeah,
because it was fucking 3 a.m. man.
3 a.m. And we were like really legitimately pull your deadlift, put it down, go over, grab your gym bag,
and leave. Still
got your power in your legs, still got your deadlift suit on, and you're being ushered out. Get out, And so that was a crazy meet. A super fun meet though. That was a super fun meet. It was crazy looking back at the times on that, but it was an exciting time. It was an exciting meet. Maybe I should qualify why this is exciting. It's exciting for me because I went in there thinking, now I didn't actually do as good as I anyway, but that class at 308s was 10 deep of every name lifter. So it was Paul Childress, Mikko Hamalainen from Finland, Dano's training partner. Greg Gallo, Fuzner was in there. My training partner Lee Berry was in there, but I trained with the guys, so I knew he was capable of. And Josh Bryant was in there, but he was still just kind of a kid, so he was like 2 or 3 places below me, and I finished 4th. But it was Childress and Hamalainen both totaled 23:20. They tied. I did 22:48, and Lee Berry did 22:53. It's one of the few times in my life I've made the decision. I did it to Gabby actually too at the IPA Women's Pro-Am, but where I called someone's lift based on what I knew the other person couldn't. I gambled on what I didn't think the other person could do, rather than what I thought I could do.
Yeah.
If you're a coach, you need to have your lifter in mind and say, I should have said, like in Gabby's case, okay, she can pull 470. When I thought 460 would be enough to win, the girl comes back and pulls. We were at the table battling, back 5 pounds, and because I had the lighter lifter. But in this case, I was my own training partner, and I trained with him. And he pulled 805 in the gym. It's kind of hard. I was like, he can't pull 826. He can play 26. I watched the guy train. So I called my third at 3 a.m. I called my third at 760, not 771 or 766. And I would have won on body weight for 766. I pulled 760 easy, but he came and stroked that 826. Nice, man. And so I based the fact that he wasn't going to pull it based on why I didn't go to 766. But I had to have 760 to be ahead at that point anyway, based on his second attempt. So those are the kind of things in powerlifting you eat at your mind forever. Because it's like, but anyway, that class was stacked. But Fuzner bombed, Gallo bombed. There was like 2 or 3. There's 2 other guys in that class. There's two big names in that class that bombed. I mean, it was so deep that I was thinking, holy shit, I'm gonna be in like 8th, and you end up, realizing what makes powerlifting such a beautiful sport is that there is no way to predict it.
No, it's the, I used to say all things being equal, the healthier person on that day is going to end up winning.
The healthier person,
because everybody's going in fucked up.
Scott Warman had an article one time that his quote in the article was, if you're waiting, I'm going to get the quote wrong, but it's someone once, if you're waiting to not be injured to compete, you're never going to compete.
Yeah.
And I 100% believe that. So when somebody tells me my goal is just to be pain-free, I'm thinking, what the hell does that even mean? Like, pain-free? Aren't we all in excruciating pain all the time?
I heard when I first started competing, because Paul Urchik was from Michigan, so all those original meets, he was like always there because he was coming up at the same time. As he got more banged up and older in his career, I can't remember which meet it was. It was a higher caliber meet. And I remember asking him afterwards, how'd the meet go? Right? Because you're paying attention to your own guys, right? And he said, well, I didn't get hurt, so that's a plus.
Right.
And thinking back, you're like, wow, that's a big one.
That's kind of how it's like, but which is basically exactly a restating what you just said. It's the healthiest person that day is probably the one who wins.
Yes.
You're all messed up as long as you can pull out enough health to outlift the other guy that's busted up.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, feel free to ask me questions.
Yeah. But
we started this conversation off by you asking about all, and I never really finished that question. The answer is I wouldn't change much, but yes, I can't use the word all.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you can't either.
No, I can't. Because it's a weird thing when you fall in love with the sport at such a young age. Right. Because that becomes that top priority. Everything else is second. School, so everything else is fucking second. But then, let's say you meet your wife, right, or your future wife. They come in later. So part of that original conversation before you get serious is, hey, look, you need to understand something real quick. This powerlifting thing is the most important thing. You know what I'm saying? This is an actual conversation.
I've actually had this exact conversation.
Right? So
my then girlfriend and future wife was like, I want you to finish. But I said to her one time, I said something along the lines of, and it wasn't along the lines, I think it was not very nice to say, it was something along the lines like, powerlifting was here before you were here.
Yes.
Powerlifting will be here no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really get to go fill in the gap after that.
Yeah.
Just understand that, and I would change that.
Yeah, so would I. That would be one of those things, right? Because that, in our brains, it's like, look, I'm protecting this, right? Because this is the most important thing. This is important, but not like this. I would have changed that, because the bigger issue I ran into when powerlifting was over, that mindset didn't change. The training was still at that level, and that was fucking stupid. Right. It was also stupid because
you got some pretty cool pictures though.
Yeah, I know, but it's just, that just leads to greater and greater issues, to where if I would have had more support, that would change that, because it'd be just less stress to be able to have to deal with. Fortunately, we made it all through all that. I learned later, but it was not necessary.
How do you reconcile? So it seems like there's two ways you can, I'm sure there's more ways maybe, but the two I think of as a powerlifter, and it seems more in powerlifting a lot, guys just disappear. Like you were Superman, you're the top of the world, and you don't want anybody to see you not be that. And you don't want to not be that. You just leave. So you go on with your life and you go work your job and you pick up yard darts or whatever hell hobby you pick up. And that's it. Then you got guys that, again, I'm going to go back to Gary Frank's lifer term, that keep going and start businesses for 27 years because they want to, they want to be around lifting. They love lifting that much. They don't want to have it not part of their life. I said, how do you reconcile? I didn't really ask a question, but is there in between?
Well, you mentioned something earlier that made me think back to when I was a personal trainer. A lot of my clients were gay, and we're going way back, right? So I remember with some of them asking them, like, how do you know like somebody else is gay? And the guy made this joke and said, well, it's a gaydar. And I'm like, what the fuck is a gaydar? It's like, well, I can just look at somebody and I just know. Well, then I realized many years later, there's a Meathead Radar.
Yeah.
Like you can just look in somebody's eyes, you know, they're a lifer. You can fucking see it. You know what I'm talking about. It's there.
I do. It's a little crazy.
It's a little crazy. It's a little fucked up. There's a lot, but it becomes such a strong part of that identity that when that gets taken away, it's hard. You know, it was hard for me. It's like, how do I fucking displace this? And it's not even really about strength. You know, it's for me, if I'm spending all my time trying to prove all these other people wrong, and now all of a sudden they're going to be right because this is going to get stripped away, I got to find some fucking way.
It's a hard road, man. I think we still live it. You still live it.
Well, that was my problem, is that I have a company and I'm sponsoring lifters. I didn't go to outside of like the WPO. Yeah. I didn't go to any meets. Shit, I didn't go to the WPO for like 2 years, for 3, 4, 5 years. I could not go to a meet. Plus meets are boring as fuck. So everybody understands that they're boring. Nobody wants to go to meets anyhow. But
I legitimately hate watching powerlifting meets.
Yeah, what it really took for me is a handful of years later, one of the guys out here lifted in a local meet. And it's probably the first time I ever went to a local meet in 15 years. And I remember watching some lady pull 3 plates, and it was a PR, and she just came back from cancer and it was her first meet. I remember Jim Cash, old as fuck, deadlifting something, and it wasn't anywhere near his best, right? I mean, one of the greatest powerlifters of all time, maybe 600. And it took an hour to stand up with. And I remember at that point thinking, this is what powerlifting is. You know, it's when you compete at those big meets all the time, you lose sight of what the powerlifting really is.
So on my list of topics I sent you that I thought was interesting, one of my notes was said, running meets as the Georgia APF State Chairman for 22 years. Change of perspective about the sport over the years was one of my topics.
Yeah.
And that change in perspective was, I stopped putting meets on now, at least for now. But the only reason I was doing it the only reason at the end there was because I wanted to see someone do maybe their first meet or get a PR and just see that light up with excitement. And I also like the camaraderie of a guy that just did his 600-pound deadlift. He goes over, a lady just pulls 120, and he goes, "Oh, you were fighting at mid thigh, and I didn't think you were gonna lock it out, but right at the top, you let your arms hang and you locked your glutes through." And he's like, "Yeah, that's awesome." And it's like these two people that are totally different worlds, totally different strengths, are all of a sudden like to have a connection. And I realized that something that I would have like been disgusted by, almost would have made me ill. Wobdell had it actually. It was like the family thing where like, you know, I got Jim and his wife and his 2 kids are all lifting. I'm like, man, fuck that. Like,
yeah,
it's hardcore. Like, it's that hardcore. Families lifting. Like, to me, a powerlifting was all about. I didn't give a shit about that. I only wanted if it wasn't APF seniors or something big, why would I care about that?
Yeah.
But actually, the last few meets I put on, I actually hoped that no big lifters would show up.
Yeah, that's if we look at open powerlifting, that's 90% of all the lifters. So that's 90,000 lifters out of 100,000, if not more.
But I also want people, and this is where I am in the sport in my own thoughts. I want those people, like for example, my friend Kevin, his wife Melissa, she had been a competitive figure skater when she was young, and she just turned 50 at the time, and I was training her just to get back in shape, and I said, hey, we won't change your training. We're still trying to get you healthy and everything, but let's put a little straight cycle in. Let's do my push pull meet, you know. And she got all excited because I knew it was going to happen. She was going to get that competitive fire back that she experienced when she figure skated. And man, when she lifted, it was just there. It was the excitement. And so I want that's what I want out of the sport. Like, I mean, yeah, I love to see guys lift big weights. I love to see this Colton, whatever his name is, do 2,600 pound totals in knee reps. It's almost hard for me to believe, but it really is very, very hard to believe to me. But I really, really love to see what I said that I used to not care about at all. I love to see a dad and his son show up, and they work out in the garage together. You know, they're the guys buying some bars from you and some bands, a power rack, and they're down there working out in the garage, and they go, hey, let's do that meet. Let's go. Let's push each other a little bit. Do a meet, and they come in. And it's like, come on, Dad. I mean, that excites me. I like that. That makes me happy. So it was so weird when I looked over and realized that that's all I cared about putting meets on, was seeing those people lift. And this is actually kind of my disconnect with the APF. I will never have a disconnect with the APF because I love the APF. But the reason I gave away or decided not to be a state chairman anymore was because the APF, to me, all the state chairmen were Jim Garandick and Gary, and they're all old school gear guys. They're all guys you and I know well, almost exclusively. And the states were falling. It had gone down to 12, 15 states, APF chairmen. And I say, Amy Jackson, I say, Amy, and I told Gary too, I said, the sport's changed. Like the reason they're not coming to the APF is because they still associate the APF with the WPO, which they consider illegitimate lifting, and in their eyes, high squats and drugged up, whatever. And they're probably still thinking the acronym that you said you'd never heard when I told you in Cincinnati, the American Pharmaceutical Federation. Yeah. But it's not. It's APF. APF really is just a great organization, but they've lost all their people. People are going everywhere else, and they're like they say, oh, we got a raw movement, we got a lot of raw lifters, but they're not promoting that. And I'm thinking, how are you not promoting the majority of the sport?
Yeah,
you know, and so you end up slitting your own throat. And it makes me very, very, very sad to think that the APF will most likely go that route, as do all federations eventually. But they had it at one time, so it makes me sad because I looked in the APF Teenage Nationals. I'm a senior national champion twice. I mean, the WPC Worlds. So to see it gone makes me sad because I loved what Ernie France did in 1986. You were lifting at that time. So do you remember that move was to, everybody abuses this now. They abuse the bi-lifter, four-lifter, four-lifter. In fact, they just stole that. You know, every federation starts up some new federation. Or our motto is going to be bi-lifters, four-lifters. Like, okay, well, that was taken a long time ago, buddy.
Yeah, it's all bullshit.
It's all bullshit. Yeah, it's all bullshit. It's all the same. It's stupid. It's just. But the AP, but Ernie and Larry Pacifico really did say, "Fuck the USPF. These guys are being strict. They're taking a sport that's fun and making it not fun with a bunch of old men in blue coats.
Yep.
That are ex-Olympic lifters judging bullshit. And then Lou Grand got red lighted for wearing too much baby powder. Yeah. You remember Lou Grand?
Yes.
I must interject a story. Short story, very short. At the APF Junior Nationals in Rosemont, Illinois, in 1994. Tommy and I lifted that meet. There was like Westside. Chuck was there. A bunch of guys were there. But Lou Graham was a super heavy, and that was the first time I saw a guy do this. You've certainly seen it multiple times. He was kind of a not a well-known guy, and he came over from the USPF because he got banned for that baby powder issue, and he attacked the judge. And so he goes to the APF, and he up at a deadlift at 600 pounds. And so they take the flight up 600 pounds, and he goes up and at the very last minute, he changes over 804, and nobody knew who he was. And so all the guys in his class so that was the first time I saw a guy do that. So
they're assuming that he's going to pull six
because he had a good squat, a moderate bench, and then they've already brushed him off. Fuck that. He comes out and he rips up a 848 that day. So anyway.
Yeah. That's I started in 82, so like 3 years before the whole APF. So I don't know all the reasons why. I know drug testing was one. I know the stupid rules were another one, but I remember competing and getting red lighted for too much baby powder. That happened to me. The squat depth, there was no, you were never breaking a PR to meet on your squat. You know, it was.
And it was arbitrary too. It was yeah, there's a rule, but that rule was really just whatever they wanted to judge you that day. I mean, I think they just be extra strict just to, everybody always says the rule book is hip crease below the top of the knee, but some judges want to take that to some level that's extra, And so, I mean, maybe I'll change up that, but
with you being in the WPO at the time, because it went from, Florida or whatever, the beach to Disney, and then to the Arnold.
Yeah.
When it moved over to the Arnold, how was that?
Well, I mean, it was a big move. I mean, I don't know. Hard Rock Cafe is pretty hard to beat.
You think?
It was pretty badass, yeah. I mean, it was. The Arnold's cool, but you get the whole. There's a lot more congestion to deal with, and getting into the venue. I know you said something about walking a long time. I don't remember walking that far at Hard Rock. I remember taking a bus over and it being a little bit weird to get in the park, but no, I mean, the Arnold was awesome. I mean, at North Georgia Barbell, my Scott Albano beat Halbert and Kellum that day on the bench on the main stage.
Yeah. Well, fuck that. I never went in there.
Well, yeah, that was not a place you want to be if you want to be happy.
Yeah.
But that was actually cool. I cried that day because to see Scott, we went in there with a plan to bench about 672, and he ended up doing a 705, which truth be told, Halbert and Kellum, who were the only two other guys to bench 700 at the time at 220. Halbert had 33 and Kellum had 735. Scott did 705 that day, but we didn't train for that, and they weren't given fourths that day because strongman had run over. Mm-hmm. I think Scott could have taken a ride at 738 that day because he looked strong. So that was a day when I was happy that day. It was a day of excitement when you train a partner does that. You see him just bust his ass training and in there at 2 a.m. training forearms and rear delts and just doing everything you need to do, knowing that somebody's at home sleeping while he's up there at the gym hitting all the extra stuff,
Mm-hmm.
So, but that wasn't the question you asked. The WPO main stage, it was exciting. I lifted. I was falling off a little by then. I lifted there a few times, but I never had good meets there. And that's when the competition stepped up a notch. It's just true. I mean, I hate to admit it because, I know you talk about this a lot. And when I wrote my meets down and I looked at it, it kind of bummed me out. I'd never looked at it like that before. But I heard you say it one day after I wrote that down about you look at this 20 years and you say, damn, I competed for 20 years. Then you realize that a third of it was just you getting new. You just being a beginner, And then the part you don't really realize is that the back third was you
falling apart,
bombing out of meets and doing 3 for 9, 4 for 9 meets and just doing it. And like you said, you were done. You just didn't know it yet.
Mm-hmm.
You were done. You were playing the calculator game.
Dave Tate here from Elite FTS to talk to you about bands. We've been a supplier of bands for almost 2 decades now. So I've known my way around the band landscape. When I'm talking about bands, I'm talking about floss bands, long bands, short bands, bands you can use for resistance training, mobility training, body weight training, and flossing. One of our most popular bands, or actually our most popular bands, are the long bands. The long bands are typically used the most with squats, bench presses. Our floss bands are bands that you wrap around the joint to be able to help with mobility, circulation. And the short bands are designed for shorter range movements, bench press, deadlifts, and a lot of times people will use them with resistance machines to help accommodate the strength resistance curve. Head over to elitefts.com and look for bands in the toolbar or blowout menu.
I mean, I spent a lot of time on that calculator. Like, if I could just put this with this with this. I mean, I don't know what yours are. I'm sure you do, but and I'd be interested to see, because I bet. But my best lifts together are 23:35. My best total is 22:48.
No, it's the same. It's like
yours
nine.
like
yeah. Oh yeah.
Your best
935, 700, and 765 or something like that. It's like 150 pounds over.
Yeah, which your head, right?
Fucks with you, man, because it's like, if I can just I don't have to get stronger, right? But it goes back to what
You got to get them all the same.
you're so caught up into this whole thing, and you don't want to fall because it's a hard fall. It's like, I don't have to get stronger. I just need to put these together. And one of the biggest advice I have for meatheads that come into the sport that are willing to be all in is, be smarter about the training to not, because what if those 3 or 4 years that we both had, which was just hanging on, right? What if that could have been productive? And then those 3 or 4 more years still would have happened. But what if we would have had 3 more years at our prime? That total that you're talking about would have been higher. And we'd be sitting here saying, well, I could have done it. It'd be 5 to 10% higher than your best if you didn't do all the stupid shit, if you didn't abuse the fuck out of the PEDs and X, Y, if you started the PEDs later, and because all that has a compounding effect.
Yeah, no, I agree. No, it's
which sucks.
Yeah, no. You said something. Right. You said something. I had a comment related to that, but there was no comment really, except that that's true.
Yeah.
And I think what I was going to say is, when you look back, what if, if I could have, none of that matters. But if you look back, you actually know what, like, I can take the taking PED things, that whatever. But I look at things and I think, okay, if I hadn't been so obsessed with the bench press shirt, because it was my weakest lift, but I fell ahead of the game on the shirt. I got a call from Jay Gibson one day, and he goes, the Gibson foreman, that guy, he goes, hey, John, he goes, cut the neck out of your shirt, man. I said, dude, what the time? I just bought the shirt, man. What are you talking about? He goes, cut the neck out. I promise you. And what I'd never realized is, see, you were probably okay because you have super strong triceps and big arms, but I'm not an arm guy. I'm a back guy. So if you got a bench shirt wrapping me up like this, is my lats. So all it did for me was, I came out and it loaded the shirt, and and then I was doing 465 triples raw and going to meet bench at 490. And so now I'd already learned to start doing more overloads, and I'd evolved my training at that point. I was using boards, and I was getting my benches were the 540s, but Jay said, cut the neck out of that shirt. So I pulled the neck out, cranked that thing down. All the guys in Iron Island were doing it. It was actually Joel Toranzo did it first, I think, and Chris Taylor. And so we pulled that shit down. Aaron Kidder called it a bench bra. You pulled it down. I mean, sometimes I had it below my pecs.
Yeah.
And you take that bar out, and it would just fall into place, and your lats would be tight and flared out. And you just hit that, as J.M. Blake was at the bubble. You hit that bubble and just, and so I was ahead of the bench shirt game. But my obsession with the bench shirt, because I started, I wasn't a great bencher, so now all of a sudden I was Billy Mimnaugh. I go to the APF seniors in 2001, and I missed 2 squats. I only got my opener, and we got the opening flight of the bench up there, and Billy and I are both looking at it. He goes, oh yeah, you got that big bench, that's right. And I'm thinking, what the fuck, man? I've never been with a guy with a big bench. Nobody's ever said that to me before. I'm always got the big deadlift, the big squat, right? And I'm like, because I was opening my bench at like 556 with like a looser shirt, and then I was going to go to my really good shirt, and I did 589. I won seniors that year, but yes, so I look back at that now, which again is irrelevant, and I wish I could just say at a 550 bench, because what I was doing is I was spending so much time trying to keep my elbow high above the line of my body, and you get that shirt, you bring it down until it stopped, and then you push up to it. My lower back got wrecked by it, and I couldn't pull in meets anymore. I mean, in the gym, it was okay because I'd pull every day. But you go to a meet, and if you look at my meets, you see a lot of do not finishes at the end. I tried everything. I brought massage therapists with me. I had stim. I had ultrasound. I had Mark Chalet came up to me at the York APF seniors that year, qualifier for WPO. And I told him about it. He said, come back to the house with me. He goes, you got any DMSO? I said, yeah, of course I have DMSO. And he's like, put this lidocaine in the DMSO. Yeah. He goes, just don't get it near your heart. And I was like, I remember thinking it's kind of a fun story.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's true or not.
I don't know about that, but I have done that.
But
not by my heart, but for other areas.
So I just had to add the Mark Shelley story. That was funny. And but yeah, that's when it started. The deadlift started to go down, and I had that mentality where in the gym it was still okay. I was still pulling mid sevens consistently. Every once in a while, I'd pull like a 780 in the gym or something. I'm still cool. But what I wish I'd done is, go back and leave that bench alone. Just use your technique, build your triceps up, get us 570, 580, whatever it is, and get that deadlift into the 825, 830 range. Because it certainly could have been, but I don't know why I thought that was a good idea. It's because that's my 5 years or so, 3 years is I had all these I had big years at numbers. I was still doing good, but I couldn't put them together at the meet. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because my training cycle for Detroit APF Senior Nationals was I squat 1,005 in the gym. I bench 660 in the training. I pulled about 740 in training, but I was thinking, okay, I'm knocking on a 2,400 pound total, and I went there and I squatted. I squatted 925, 920, bench 633. Of course, I bobbled my open. I had to repeat the squat, and on the deadlift, I pulled the 639 with some grueling, slow guttural pull with this back pain like somebody stabbed with an ice pick, with tears like dripping down your eyes. And Goggins actually rolled up a washcloth and put it in the base, the crack up my spine, under my deadlift suit, and then cranked with a belt puller to put pressure into that spot. And I was able to get a 639 and finish with a 2195 total, not 2,400 now, 2195. Mm-hmm. So that was my decline. Numbers in the gym, might get close to 2,400 here. Numbers of the meet, they weren't going together anymore with three lifts the same day.
Yeah, the main thing that put me out was my shoulder. I was losing mobility, right? And so for a long time, whoever was behind me would have to put my arm under the bar to be able to go through that. And then Louis came up with what I thought was a genius fucking idea. And that was, we're just going to use the safety squat bar until 5 weeks out. Then we're going to switch over. But the shoulders are going to just be chill the whole time. And then, so we're not going to trash the shoulders in the whole period. But I was too fucking dumb to realize during that time, maybe put a broomstick on your back, something. And so by the time it came to be able to do that, now they couldn't even wedge my arm under the bar anymore. So it's like, fuck. Fuck.
I was like frozen,
Yeah, so completely frozen. And whatever that last meet was, I mean, they did crank it underneath there, but it was, there's some pain you can put out of your brain. There's some pain that, Vicodin will be able to take some. It just was, fuck. It was done. And it was probably one of the best things that ever happened because everything else was kind of.
Of course, the idea wasn't bad. If you had actually worked
kept it,
which without load, you probably would have squatted something big.
Yeah, it would have fucking worked. And that was the whole thing, was to be able to get the squat that I never got, because it's, plus I ended up, and I think you started to have this problem too towards the end. I had a fucking shaking problem with the squat that was just, you come out of the monolift and you learn, don't go down until it's a down shake. So you're like shake and shake, then but once you start, it goes away. And I'm trying to figure out like, what the fuck, people, your disc, you're fucked up, it's nerve damage, it's all this. So I just assumed, fuck it, this is what it is.
Check all the boxes.
Yeah.
All the above.
Fuck it, I'm just going to go with it, right? I found out many years later I didn't know how to brace effectively, which kind of took that all away. But that was also compounding there as well.
Actually that was actually one of the reasons when I went to, so I went through this period of what I'm going to call it hybrid training, and not to be confused with your video with a guy that was doing cardio. And
yeah,
that wasn't a problem. I wasn't doing that.
Yeah, didn't think so.
But so I started thinking, okay, how do I minimize my back stress? So, and also, I never really truly liked squat suits very much. I mean, I didn't mind the old Z suit days or something, but I didn't. To me, I would have to shrug my shoulders up to put the straps on so loose to get your chest up, because guys would crank them down. You get into the bar and you got a group. So I did a meet one day just for fun up in an SPF meet in Chattanooga, and I weighed in at 328, granted, but I squatted 905 with a pair of briefs and a singlet and a suit. So and reps. And even though that's an equipped lift in a meet, my plan was to do a big squat with just briefs and reps. And I went back to my regular stance, where I'm comfortable, not coast to coast. We all tried to mimic Westside style training. We all tried the toes out, touch on the monolift almost inside, push shin angle beyond perpendicular, glute hamstring load. But the problem I have is a lot of those guys, and the guys now mastered it great. They look like they're on a Smith machine. Their backs are rock solid, and their bars are high in their
It's back. A high bar. It needs, yeah.
And so I'm the guy putting the bar below my rear delts. I mean, if I could put it on my middle of my spine erectors, I would. I'm this guy. So I'm always going to be that guy, because I'm a back lifter. I'm kind of like Goggins in that respect. So I'm pushing the ass back, feet super wide, canvas suit on, and having no power really, and having no stability. It's that's my shaking problem. So when I went and I said, okay, I just messed around with just briefs and I put my feet back in like my regular old stance, still probably wide, but not that. It felt like $1 million, man. Never shook again. Then I started doing some rap meets, and I was back to me again, like when I was young.
Yeah, what I didn't learn until too late was because the diaper suit, like the canvas suit, came in towards the back end, right? And God, Louis, everybody was against that until that one meet I think you were talking about, to where Willie and Steve went back to back. And Willie kind of came out of nowhere with this 1,000-pound squat, by the way. I think he squatted 8 something the year before. And then all of a sudden I'm like talking to Ernie in the back, like I want one of these things. So it's what I didn't realize until later is I was trying to do what you were doing, to sit back. You can't sit back. You can't go low bar and sit back in that fucking thing. No. It wasn't until the very end that I realized you got to keep the bar high and you got to almost do a plie. It just straight down.
No, for sure. I mean, half of those guys have got it. I mean, they're beautiful looking. I mean, all those guys, the WPO now, it's a beautiful lift. It's a different lift, but it's a different lift, just like the bench is a different lift. I mean, it's sure, it's just a different.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. They do. Their knees are out, and their back straight, and they're going down, like almost like a Smith machine or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And of course, when you start doing that and you handle those kind of poundages, the slightest movement could dump you fast as shit. But if you're right on line and you've been training that way.
Well, looking back, because I could never figure out at first how these fuckers are keeping it on their back, because you got this much strap. And in a low bar, it's just sliding down your back. So I actually had my straps modified to be thin so I could hold it there, instead of just thinking, put it higher and kind of go through until too late, looking through there. But that's gear. I mean, you were in there when gear was changing too, fuck, when you started, it was probably just a blast shirt. Yeah. Then we both went through the gangster bench shirt era where it was a nightmare. Where
no, I knew that coming here. I was thinking about that. Another thing I wrote down too was because you also lived through the. There was you and I pretty much made it the entire period. I think I went a little bit longer into the raw. I mean, you were a little bit before me, but same year. But yeah, my first suit was a hand-me-down marathon squat suit that was cotton with a hole in the crotch.
Yeah,
and it was cottony, and my mom and dad bought me a $38 blast shirt that I wore from 177 to 240, and it's $38 where it was, then when Tommy and I trained together, now it was like, let's get, you start talking about the denim shirts, and you start grid stitching them, you start doing scoop necks, you start doing extra thick collars, you got it almost to a non-powerlifter, it sounds like an absolute joke.
Well, it became crazy because when I first came to Westside, Louis was looking at my shit and he's like, well, you need double ply briefs. I didn't even know those existed because they weren't in Powerlifting USA, and I'm like, what the fuck? We can do that? And of course I'm ordering it like immediately. And then it just became the bench shirt thing. An interesting thing there is at a local meet, Vanessa Swanker was benching and the back of her shirt blew out. And she hit like a 30-pound PR. Really? And for a year, we're like, she's strong as fuck. Imagine what she could have done had that not blown out, right? We didn't realize, what happened with that whole thing. And then it just evolved. And I was on the opposite of the story that we didn't use it enough because we just go to the meet and put it on and be like, what the fuck? I'm getting a 40-pound. I got a 545 raw bench. I'm benching 600. This is bullshit. Now you're starting to see other people get 200, 250, and 300.
I heard you say this. There was a time when Tommy and Jerry were friends, and Tommy came up, I think, a few times and hung out with Jerry up here, and he might have come out of Georgia and trained with us once, but we were trying to get the inside scoop on Westside because that was when Lou was writing the articles in the 90s, but
it wasn't really.
It wasn't. That's all. Yeah. Everybody's just picking at it. They're like, what's up with these chains and what's up with this? And so Jerry would tell us, say, Jerry, they train with gear on, right? Yeah, we wear some gear, man. And probably meant like briefs, probably, but I'm like, yeah, it's bullshit, man. They're not training raw. So, but I've heard you tell the story so many times that you guys weren't training with the gear, and everybody, Matt Wenning said it, and Chuck said it. Everybody says the one thing they would have changed is training the freaking gear.
Yeah, but what you just said, I didn't think about it. Had we put the shirt on more, what would have happened to the deadlift? Because yes, that was a big part of it, reaching up to that. And if we put it on, it might be like 2 or 3 times before a meet. The squat suit never went on. You made sure it fit. Everything else was in briefs and stuff like that. And after I left, they started to implement that more, so the numbers started to go back up. But there's always that other side.
Well, I think that's where like North Georgia Barbell probably was somewhere in between Big Iron and Westside in that respect, because we did use gear most workouts. Now, Rick Hussey had that technique, that style where they used reverse bands all the time with full gear all the time, singles. I don't. It worked.
It worked.
I don't know that I love that idea with reverse bands, but again, who could take away from the fact that he had some guys with some skinny legs doing some big squats, and you guys trained mostly raw and got really freaking strong and got good. You were training like power. You were powerful and legitimately powerful, and we did a lot of training. We definitely weren't just singles, but we used gear a lot. Always briefs. Goggins one time, he said to me, he used briefs all the time too, but when he first came to Georgia, he's like, you and Mike always wearing them briefs every workout. You better take them off. You'll get a flabby ass. And we're like, man, we just want a big squat. You don't care about that. But we always had briefs on. It was the joke in the article I was about to say one time. it was I said that I mowed my yard with briefs on, and people ask me that for years. And I go to meets like, did you really wear briefs? And the thing is, it wasn't really a joke. I actually did wear briefs to mow my yard because my hips were fucked up.
Yeah.
So I mean, I had like some Franz boxer briefs that were old. I used them when I pushed mow my yard, but come on, you would have done the same thing.
I would have done the same thing for sure. They would have been bigger, right?
I mean, the yard really never got mowed because usually it was like, hey, are you gonna mow the yard? I said, hey, Becky, I got a contest coming up. I go out there and mow the yard. I went the contest, I'll go out there and get the contest to be over. And she'd say, hey, you gonna go out there and do some stuff?
No, I'm fucked up.
I got another meet. Mike's got a meet coming up next week. I got to go to, and then after that, I got to get ready for I'm doing a meet in 3 months. And by the way, that's a whole other subject. Is sometimes it's not funny, and you obviously made it through and have a happy marriage. But you think about things that if you would have asked me most of my life and said, I would have said I was probably like one of the least selfish people that I knew, because if Dave Tate asked me to come help him at a meet, I would have been there 2 days later. I would have quit my job if I had to and get another job when I came back. I didn't give a shit. But I remember one time my wife saying like, hey, are you going to, you be able to make it Saturday it was her nephew's birthday party. And I go, Becky, I work on Saturdays. I can't just take a random Saturday off work. That's when I make the most money. That's when I make all my living. And she said, okay, well, we'll just go. That's fine. And then the very next week, I'm like, hey, Mike and I are heading down to Daytona Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. He's got a meet. I'm going down there to help him. And Matt just took off those days and went down. And
that's fucked up to think about, because
I never thought about it though. To me, that wasn't selfish. But back, it was the most fucked up selfish thing.
It is fucked up, because then the amount of Easters. Right, because we benched on Sunday. The amount of Easters and Christmases I missed, because Christmas could always fall on a training day, because of that. It's insane. When my first son was born, I slept in a different room for 4 months, so the crying would not wake me up, so I could be rested for my training. Which at the time, part of me still says that kind of makes sense, but it's fucked up, where it's that all-in mentality that I speak to a lot of people about. And it's interesting as you get older, because you realize you're only all in for the things you conveniently wanted to be all in on.
No, I know.
Right? And then you're way hard on that. You don't give a fuck about, better nutrition. You're just going to eat everything. But if you eat everything, you're going to cover your bases, right? Because you're just eating so much shit. But you're definitely all in on the training and all this other kind of stuff. But you realize later that if you were all in on sleep, better diet, shit like that.
Yeah. I've heard you talk a lot about all in to a lot of people. And it's interesting how
I don't know if a lot of people have ever really been there, because the ones that I ask, would you do it again? They always fucking pause. Because they think, not would you do the powerlifting again? Like, if you found something else to be all in on at that level, would you do it? And the people that have done this before, they're going to fucking think. Yeah. Because there's a lot you don't realize, that you're not sacrificing, other people are for you. You think you're sacrificing.
No, it's some big sacrifices, for sure. It was, but you're right. Like, all in. Yeah, I made sure I was all into eating either a pizza for lunch and some sort of burger or steak for dinner, or a burger and steak for lunch and a pizza for dinner. I like to cycle that. That was a cycle I used. I always eat I tried to alternate them, but at least every day, I like to spend I was all in on spending $25 or $30 for breakfast every day and getting like 3 entrees, but probably didn't sleep very good, or certainly wasn't worried about too much nutrition.
Yeah, exactly. So those are the lifters are figuring that out. They're able to put those. But the positive part of this, because you've done this before, how much effort needs to go into other things. So you can better select without self-destruct.
But then there's the other side, and this is the part that I almost want to say it's really hard for anybody to ever get it right, because then you have the over analyzer. and this is one of my thoughts on powerlifting sometimes is I feel like to me is why I love the sport and think it's almost a perfect sport to me, is that there's two kinds of people that I think of. I think of a person that's an animal. I mean, just aggressive as hell. They come in there. I mean, they just attack the shit out of some stuff, and we know these people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, banging the head in the bar, just nuts, man, full on milligrams, doesn't matter. And then they're gone. A lot of those guys some last a little while, but most of them don't last that long. And then there's the guy, the overanalyzer, the overthinker. And they're the person that can tell you every PR and my best 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rep set. And they're the ones who are talking about foam rolling and doing weird, they're in the gym for like 45 minutes doing like one-legged stuff and side planks. And you're like, dude, get on the fucking squat bar. Just warm up. I mean, I stretched a little bit, like, then I got on the squat bar, but it's, put about a gallon of icy hot on, some DMSO, and get under the bar and start lifting. But I find that neither one of those guys are the best.
Hey guys, if you're enjoying what you're watching, make sure to take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe.
It's usually, you have to have both.
Yeah.
So you have to be and you are, there's no question about that, but you have to be intelligent, systematic, know how to evolve your training, constantly make adjustments in your training, learn your body and your training. And also when the bar gets loaded, just get the fuck crazy. You turn that shit off, go to a dark spot and massacre a weight. Yeah. So you can't think your way through a lift. Not really. You've already built those pathways. I mean, you're gonna get under it. You're gonna I know there was a zippy card there.
Oh yeah.
So I know you could turn that on.
But you can only use it so many times before you crash.
Yeah. Yours might have been on the higher threshold than that. It's not like yours.
I could use 3 in a meet.
Yeah.
That was it. So I had to like control, because it's a different play. You know what I'm talking about? It's a different fucking, this is where I have this problem with RPE stuff, right? Because I'm like, well, where am I mentally allowed to be? Because if you really want this other person, that RPE of 10 is fucking me up for a week.
So when you attack an opener, and it's your opener, you have to pull it back
just a little bit. Yeah,
you're gonna be fired up. Your heart's racing. It's your first lift of the meet. You got to get in the meet, but you have to pull back a little bit, because you got to save that for your third attempt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah,
where that's hard. I like the people that are that aggressive, crazy fuck. Because if you can get them just to learn how to dial it back, they're always going to beat the intellectuals every single time. But getting them to dial it back is not easy. But it's definitely possible if you've been that person.
Yeah, no, I mean, I maybe could think that more people that are successful lifters are a little bit lean in that direction.
Oh, yeah. It all comes down to confidence.
You're just not, you can't strictly analyze and science yourself strictly to a big ass lift. That's the part of the sport that I love, is the primitive side of the sport, the caveman side, just to you don't remember lifting it. I mean, you're nuts, but yeah, you have to. Like I said, it has to be controlled, and you can't be that way all the time. But I think your point, I've never thought about it that way, but I think, if you can take the cyclone and
just the number of people, and it's been more apparent just with the podcast, because I'm speaking to people that train all different kinds of ways, right? And there's a lot of all-time world record holders that you could sit there and discuss training with them, and they really don't have a fucking idea, what it's all about.
Right.
But they know how to auto-regulate everything, right? They don't know the X's and the Y's and all. They'll talk like they do, but they really don't. But what they know is how to regulate what we're talking about.
No, I agree. I watch this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, they know when to take it up and they know exactly when to dial it down. Like if the training session's not going right, they know, and this is where we fucked up. A lot of those sessions were like, man, this feels fuck it.
Yeah, man.
And just, that's what I would have changed, is just to be able to bring it back a little bit.
I used to always say that, I don't know about this for you, but 315, like 405 the squat were two weights I hated. They always felt 400 always felt a little fucked up.
Yeah.
Because even though I understand, Ernie France's 10 Commandments, a powerlifting book, one of the commandments is treat light weights like they're heavy, so heavy weights feel light. Pretty simple thing. Do everything the same. Yeah, you did. But you weren't fucking ready. 405 was just enough where you had to be a little tighter.
Mm-hmm.
It was only fucking 405.
Yeah.
By the time you got, you laugh because
It's true.
you fucking know exactly what I'm talking about. And then you go to 500 similar.
Mm-hmm.
You're still not really. It's fucking 400. Now,
Why do it?
now when you get to 6, 7, now all of a sudden you're like, so Goggins, he was the kind of training partner sometimes. You're warming up, and you do a 405. He goes, man, you don't look good today. You're not looking good today. You look like you might want to go and call. What's your weight today? I'm doing 705 for a triple. Man, I go and just call it. And you're like, man, just stop, And then by the time you got to 600, 700 pounds, and now you were tight, now you were bracing, now you were giving a shit, and all the time you had the tightness, but. Yeah, I used to hate those weights.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I said that, but I knew you'd relate to that because I think most lifters, there's a weight where you're just not.
It's just stupid.
Yeah.
You're just warming up, and then at a certain point, it's like, okay, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I
take this shit serious.
Yeah, I got to start training now.
That's also why I hurt myself with a deadlift one time, disrespecting. I was disrespecting weights. So it's like, I was doing like 500. I was doing like speed singles, just pulling it, stepping back 10 seconds, pulling it, stepping back. And I was doing shit like it was so fucking light. Cause all my deadlift was just a blinding rip off the floor. It was I used to claim prior to smartphones, that it was impossible to take a picture below my knee. But now if I told you that in advance, you would have pressed the button before I pulled. But But that's a long stint. I'll teach your hip cut about 5 or 6 times. That it's not as powerful anymore. But I was doing the 500 and it was just I had one of my training partners over there that probably thought 500 was heavy, and you'd rip it up and you'd be like, do some shit like put it down, like you be a little cocky thing, like it was just so fucking light, and I tore a hamstring. So I remember thinking like the thing you already knew, but you're thinking like, dude. Treat all the fucking weights.
Well, that's a crazy thing that for myself, 100%, most of my injuries did not come from the heaviest weights.
No.
It was always a stupid weight like that you just weren't paying attention with.
225.
And you're like, what the fuck? I just tore my pec with fucking 275. Yeah. Like, what the fuck? But then you got to go to 315 just to make sure it was actually tore. That's the stupid shit that you shouldn't really do. That I advise the other people to do. So what did your training actually look like?
Lots of years, lots of training. If we're talking about when I actually knew how to train.
Well, if you're laying it out, right, which nobody actually kind of did, but if you had to lay it out.
So when I would say that I was a smarter person at writing training programs for myself. Most of my life, I was a very traditional, and I believe beginners still need to do traditional 8s, 5s, 3s, 2s.
You think the 8s?
Man, I started with 10s. I won't make this a long story, but so I thought I was like, I'm figuring this shit out, right? So I'm gonna start even farther out. I started with 20s. So I did a training cycle one time where I started with 2 weeks of 20s, 2 weeks of 15s, 2 weeks of 12s, 2 weeks of 10s, 2 weeks of 8s, 3 weeks of 5s, because I figured 5 is always your perfect balance.
Yeah.
Hypertrophy. And of course, by then I'm so fucked up. But
Yeah.
So I remember when I got to the 10s, I was ready for the program to be over. I haven't started the program yet, really. But I started my 20s at like 405. I was doing my 15s with 450s, 475s. I was doing my 12s at 500. Anyway, 525. When I started by 10, so I actually started with 10s. I did 2 weeks of 10s, 2 weeks of 8s, 3 weeks of 5s, 2 weeks of 3s, 1 or 2 weeks of 2s, and a singles. Never, we were probably maxing by then occasionally. But, and I know you said that in a way that you don't think there's a value in 10s. You think it's
there is. There definitely is, but I don't know at that load.
Yeah.
I call it more hypertrophy training.
I know the 20s, the 15s, and that was, I don't call that my greatest ever thought process, but that was just because I was ready to train for the meet and it was way too far out, and I just wanted to have something. I didn't know any better. I was young still then. Yeah,
prior to Westside, I always used linear, and then as that quit working, I started dumping the 8s and starting with the 5s, but with weights that were light.
Yeah.
So it was still, if I had 3 weeks of 5s programmed out, it was just 3 weeks backed off of that. So, the first week, it was stupid, just stupid light. And then I started to realize later that I think all the 5s are doing are making the triples feel easier, cardiovascular wise. So I started to kind of pull that all out. And then all the other stuff with hypertrophy or the off season would be more of that.
5s. I do think Cone is right that 5s are the cornerstone of strength and muscle mass. It should make up. It doesn't have to be balls to the wall max 5s like the way you're doing it. So
you can recover from them better though too, because you can only do triples for so long.
I did that for a lot of years, and way too long. I could look at my meets and tell where it was the same total about 4 years. It just floated around the same. It was 2068 total, then 2070, 2075. They were just like, I wasn't getting stronger. And then when I started learning how to use, and that's when I met Shelby Robbins, from Tuscaloosa, and he was the one who was, his brain was like 100 miles an hour ADD, and he had so many creative ideas, but he couldn't harness them. He'd get an idea, and then he'd be on. He played football at Alabama and stuff, and he was in the strength community, and so I would go over there and learn from him. Then I'd bring it back and put it into a template that was sensible and systematic, and all my guys were getting strong. And Shelby will be the first one to tell you, like, he'd already changed 3 different ideas since then, But I would, and that's when I started doing most of my stuff. It still is, and for people, or most of my training was either 2 or 3 week waves of something that covered what I would say covered most bases. Now, obviously, I'll use your term. It depends. I would make it more personalized depending on the individual. But if I was going to just say generically, like a deadlift workout, for example, it might be 1 week where you do 8 singles at 50, 60%, where you step back 10 seconds, step back 10 seconds. So you're getting 8 first reps. That day is going to be followed by a partial at either 6 inches off the floor, a rack below the knee, or a rack directly above the knee, not mid-thigh bullshit, but just like, and that's probably going to be change every other week. It's going to be, and that's 1 week. The week in between is going to be starting on higher deficit mats, doing maybe sets of 5. 2 weeks later, I might drop a mat and do 4s, drop a mat, do 3s, drop a mat, do 2s, and then you'll never do a 1 off the floor because that's the day of the meet. So that would be a wave to me that would incorporate a periodized rep, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 type thing on a deficit. 3 different heights to hit 3 different potential weak points. That's where I'd customize it for the individual if it was a little bit different. And you never really pull off the floor, but you do get lots of weights off the floor, either deficit or lighter weight percentage singles back to back to back to back
Yeah.
to back as a warm up for your heavy rack pulls. So that would be an example of all my workouts would do something similar to that. Maybe a million different ways to do that, like that chain drop program we talked about. It's probably alternating weeks, could be 3 weeks. It could be, 2 boards 1 week, 3 boards the next with close grip always. In the shirt days, it was always followed by a pre-exhausted single. I'm a big fan of pre-exhausted singles.
How so?
Except pre-exhausted singles don't matter with raw lifting. It's a detriment to raw lifting. But in geared lifting, like say for the bench press, I'll tell you how I came out about with this thought process. So I was doing a training cycle, traditional style, old school, dropping reps with Tommy one time. I never benched 500 yet in a meet. And I did all my reps. I no shirt. I did my 5s at 430 or something. I got 435. I got to my triples. I was doing 465 at triples raw. Put the denim on, clothes back down, claustrophobic as shit. And I did 2 doubles at 495, and I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna crack 500 wide open. Came in the next week, I'm warming up. I blow my shirt out. My buddy Doug had a shirt, just about a size bigger. I said, let me use your shirt. Well, I go to 505 and I miss it. Well, it's in my head now. So I go to the meet and a few weeks, 2 weeks later, and I got my shirt fixed, but still, third attempt, 501. I think I took it twice. I missed it twice. And so I came up with this idea that I thought I couldn't lose. It was a win-win no matter what. So I do something like, say I do board work first. So say I'm doing 3 board close grips that day, and I'm doing sets of 500 for 2 sets of 5. Then when I'm done, I do a wave style, a Bulgarian style, where I take it back down to 275 for a single, 365 for a single, 450 for a single without a shirt again. Put the shirt back on and take 1 single to the chest with like 575. If I miss it, I go, yeah, I missed it, but I was fatigued and I was out of the groove a little bit. If I make it, then I'm like, fuck yeah, dude, I made it, and I was tired as shit. Think how good it would be if I was fresh, So I couldn't lose in that case. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. So in that case, I felt like, now that wasn't like that was things I did about peppered into my training, because it also followed a Bill Crawford, apologize, both good benchers. It followed a Bill Crawford method of, I used to love his stories about a militia where he'd say, come on down and train with me. And guys, bring all your shirts. And they bring like 5 shirts in. He'd be like, hey, which one's your best shirt? Or he'd say, or which one's your, which well, this is my shitty shirt. All right, take the other ones out of the car. So they take their shittiest shirt and he'd teach them to use that, master it. So to me, that was a similar thought process. Like, Middle militia used to also they would wave up, and if they missed a weight, they go back down, start over again, wave back up. And because they weren't trying to get stronger per se, they were trying to get their shirt groove right. Yeah. So when I talk about a pre-exhausted single in that respect, that was for me a way to not get a mental stagnation in my training. Well, sometimes I wonder, because I played around with things like that, if you're fatigued, you're not going to fight it as much on the way down. It's going to drop a little bit faster. Yeah. And sometimes that's the reason why a lot of people can't touch, is they're so timid on the way down, where if it just went a little, but if you're tired as fuck, it's coming down. I mean, that's certainly, I'm sure, true, because you are fatigued, but it worked well. It worked well because I made most lifts, and they were always like, they weren't 100% weights, but they were sometimes like 90% plus weights, But it wouldn't just be thrown in arbitrarily. Like, it would be a program where it would be designed to be in every 3rd week or something. Mm-hmm. Every 3rd week you take a pre-exhausted single. And the weeks in between, and this is irrelevant because people don't train with gear as much anymore, so this doesn't work for raw bench, I don't think. But I had come up with a technique that I gave Tommy, and he loved it. I don't know if it ever really got around too much, but people used to put the bands in the power racks and then they drop the band every week or something, drop the pin.
Yeah.
Well, that's okay, but I decided to attach the band to the monolift and we take the Forza bench and put it under the monolift because it fit, but you couldn't use the hooks; it's too high. So we just dropped the hooks out of the way, attached the bands to the top of the monolift, and I'd use the monolift jack. And so we'd start off with, say, blue bands and they'd go up to a max single. But here's the weird part: you'd think you have to use heavy weights, and you think that would make it difficult to touch, but it doesn't. It makes it easier to touch because, so let's say you're a 600 bench and you put 635 in the bar. You're bringing 635 down, but the bands are deloading the weight. They're lightening the load. So right at the bottom, when it's the lightest, you're really learn how to manipulate the elbow.
Yeah, you can move.
Push up to it. Mm-hmm. And so maybe we do that on week 1. We do that on hole 14 or something. And 2 weeks later, in our wave, we do it on hole 13 or usually like 3 holes, like maybe hole 14, hole 11. Hole 8, and at the end you're getting a pretty slack band and you're touching. Now you're not doing the same weight every time. You really are adjusting the weight accordingly. I can prove to you at that point that you can touch anything you want to touch. The guy's like, I can't touch. Well, most of the guys that they couldn't touch only did board presses all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, you think, well, that's just general sports specificity. If you're not touching your chest, if you're not training, why the fuck would you be able to touch it in meet? Mm-hmm. So most of my programs involved things like that. So that program had an element of, yet again, it was a week of 3 boards, close grip, 3 to 2 boards, close grip. The second week followed by a pre-exhausted single. Those weren't consecutive. 3 board, close grip, then a reverse band, reverse band press. Then a 2 board close grip followed by a lower band. And anyway, so
they're cycling every other week.
Yeah.
It's kind of like,
you're touching your chest every week. You're getting overload with the boards, because when it goes to the second round, it goes to contest grip.
Yeah.
I'm missing something in there because after you do your monolift band drop, you actually that was followed by some sort of raw benching to the chest, I think.
Which would be the last week.
That was anyway. I had the program somewhere.
Yeah.
But when I told you there's a million programs, people tell me that's the program worked for me. I can go back and figure those programs out, but they always had some sort of 2 week. So I like when Matt Wenning got on here and he said that he had come up with now, especially because he does come from Westside background, that he does a triple straight bar for specific of field of movement. Then he analyzes where he's weak. So if the lifters get a little dip in here, mm-hmm. maybe they'll put a cambered bar next week, and then I think they do 2 weeks of weak point training with other bands, chains, bars, boxes. Then they go back and they do it on the 4th. That's a 3-week wave. On the 4th week, they do a double. And then 2 more weeks of weak point training. And then on the next week, they do a single, I think. So Matt had kind of done something similar. He was doing, they're doing, and I don't remember what his reps were I don't remember how he was doing his max effort. It might have been singles on the specialty bars. I don't remember. It still had a Westside feel to it, but he had realized that he had to throw in more straight bar, full range reps. And so he was on here when he was talking to you. He said that, and I thought that was like, well, yeah, it's kind of like the way to my training,
Did you find, because you go from one training cycle to the next training, so one meet to the next meet. One of the things that Louis pointed out to me one time, which was changed every fucking perspective I ever had, is the first time I squatted 900, it could have been 950. I mean, it was a fucking joke. And as we were driving back from York, I'm asking, we're talking about like, so what's the training going to look like going into this next meet? And what he told me was, we're not going to change anything. Your squat wave is going to stay exactly the same, because
yeah.
why not just do the same and go back and get what you should have got? That way we're not going to accumulate as much damage. And in my brain, you know, I'm thinking, fuck it, we're going to set this up at a 950. You know what I'm saying? But that reality check there, and the only thing we really waived were the squats anyhow. Everything else was kind of auto-regulated. But that was one of those things where it was like, fuck, this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I've heard you tell that story before, and actually, I remember thinking, like, my thought on that was like, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Just like you just said, maybe I probably should have been a little bit better. Another thing that somebody said in here, I can't remember who it was, one of your guests, had said that they like to base their, well, the 531's based on this too. They like to base their number on about a 95% or so. And so I have trouble with that one in terms of, if it was my workout, writing that up is difficult, but because I think they were right. I think you get somewhere between 4 to 6%. It might be Matt. You get 4 to 6% of additional intensity at the meet. And I think that's probably pretty true.
Yeah.
So if you, all my life when this is why I have fake joints and problems, because the good portion of my life, it was based on, I really started those long training cycles based on a number that was really pulled out of thin air, man. It was a dream number plus some. It was like okay, so what do you want to squat, John? Well, I want to squat 650 at that meet. Well, what's your best squat to meet? 573, and you'd be like, based on 650, motherfucker, and I'd be missing weights on the third week.
Yeah.
We've all done
oh yeah,
this,
yeah.
And so I like Louis. That statement made a lot of sense to me. I was like, and I also like basing your numbers on a number that is, first of all, you have to pick a realistic number. I could take 5% off of 650 and I would have been too high anyway. But it'd be closer. So yeah, how you base those? I'm still a percentage guy. I actually came to embrace I understand RPE better when I was over at Georgia Strength Compound a little bit, because I always like to ask the kids that come in. They're everything that I didn't understand. I don't understand training by yourself. And they're all like tunnel vision me. And I was like, dude, I'll always argue that every single training program, anything you could do, I don't care what you pick, it could be, you name a routine, is second place to people around you. You can do the best routine by yourself will yield considerably worse results than a subpar routine with a group of people getting fired up, pushing you. So, but I wanted to know about RP, and I'd ask these kids, I said, so what do you base that on exactly? And they'd tell me, and some of them use the RIR. The one that really used to freak me out was, they say, I'm doing an RPE 7.5 at blah, 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 blah. And I'd be like, 7.5. So RP and RIR, those are like opposites, right? Like, so you're doing a rate of perceived exertion of 7.5, which means that you theoretically have 2.5 reps left. So what the fuck is a half a rep?
That's what I was going to say. What the hell is a half a rep?
I go, what's a half a rep? I go, in my world, a half a rep is called missing a weight.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I understand the 0.5 RPs and the things, but I know this is the whole basis of train your ass off too, which is really an awesome thing you do, to teach people that they have no idea what RPE is really.
Well, there's two, right? There's the RPE of a max effort thing, and then there's the RPE of a set of 8 to 12. They're completely two different fucking worlds, right? Anybody who's ever lifted weights knows that. And you can get, and the 8 to 12, if it's an accessory, who gives a fuck if you could have done 15? Right. It's just the volume you're looking for. But a lot of people, they just don't, this is the value in the max effort work to a point. A lot of people just don't know how to strain. You've seen it. It gets a little hard and then they quit. Sometimes you got to push for a couple more seconds to keep that fucker moving, but they don't know because they never get into that spot.
That's a good point, yeah.
Or if they do, it's on like a third rep and their technique's completely fucking different. On the third rep of their squat is a good morning. So who gives a shit if you know how to strain on a good morning?
Do you think an RPE is more relevant, or is something that you would even endorse using on singles and doubles and triples?
The only time I would ever endorse that is if I was trying to work with somebody that I'm not seeing.
Okay.
Right. So with the online coaching, I get it. You got to have some gauge. But if the coach and the lifter are not on the same definition of what that is, it's worth shit. If you're training with somebody and they're supposed to do a heavy triple for today and their last set before their top weight looks like horse shit, you're telling them, look, man, 2 questions. A, can you get fired up to the level that you need to do this? But you can already see they already just did that. So you're like, man, look, you're done. Right? Or they're just fucking killing it on the day.
Yeah.
You're like, throw it on an extra dime. Right? So all we're doing through that group training that you were talking about is RPE.
Yeah.
Right? This is too fucking light for you right now where you're at. You need to put a little bit more on. It's too much. You need to pull a little bit back. That's easy to do when you train with somebody.
Or the point you made a bunch in RPE, I think, is that it's easy for you to do for yourself too, with lots of years of experience under the bar, but or not easy, but it's easier. But yeah, these people that if you're a total novice and you just started and somebody says do an RP, yeah, you have no base. There's no way to base that on anything.
Well, how many?
There's no way to regulate it up or down based on that day.
Yeah, I mean, how many times you've had people come into your gym, right? And they end up breaking a PR. Somebody that trains by themselves, they end up coming in and breaking a PR by 50 fucking pounds.
It's all the time, yeah.
Yeah. So it's either the technical cues. It's definitely not the air. You know what I'm saying? It's the technical cues or it's the environment. And then you got to ask yourself, what RPA were they really training at?
Yeah.
It's perceived. Rate of perceived. The word perceived gets left out when people talk about that.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah.
Like, how are we going to define perceived and what does perceived mean and in what context? And so it fits the definition.
Selling Jordan Peterson.
Wait, what? Yeah.
What do you mean by defined? What do you mean by perceived?
Yeah. Well, that it's just like RPE. Like, why can't you fucking say what it is? Right. Perceived. And that's the big caveat with that whole thing. But I get it. If somebody's working with somebody online, you're limited. Percentages suck. RPE suck. They all suck.
Yeah.
So you got to go with what sucks the least.
Yeah, and even percentages if you're not there to regulate somebody and their last warm up feels shitty, they need to know where to adjust it. I mean, it's still time under the bar and experience and
percentages get. When you're on the untested side, percentages are fucked too, right? Because are your drugs working? Are they not working? It's very anabolic based.
Yeah, you just put the dosage.
Exactly. Right. I mean, that's kind of how I gauged, what's the recovery, what's things feel like. Because shit, when you were taking in the earlier years, you don't know if it's real or not real. So sometimes you're taking what you think is 3 grams, but it might be 800 milligrams. All you know is it's not enough.
Yeah, I totally going in a different direction again. You occasionally have a guest on here, more than one, that was the top lifters that we all know, who say things such as, and we had this conversation earlier, but this is a little different. This isn't say things such as, I mean, I never went over 1,000 was high for me, and I'm thinking like, dude, I ran a powerlifting gym. I was around these guys. I've seen you at meets. You're purple. Mm-hmm. You got purple splotches on your skin. You weren't taking 1,000. You weren't taking 1,000 milligrams. You were. I mean, most people were average at about 2,000 milligrams. Usually, I mean, when I was clean, I was at 600, 800 milligrams. So, yeah. I mean, that was me being off. That was a joke. It was a joke. But Man, what you doing right now, man? I'm just taking it easy right now. I'm not doing shit. I'm pretty much off. What are you taking? Nah, I'm just taking about 800 milligrams right now. That's about it. I'm just taking it easy for a little bit until time starts.
I had a real scientific approach. Whatever I wanted to total is what I had to be taking 8 weeks out.
That's actually really, was that really a thought? Yeah.
Fuck yeah, it was.
I like it.
It seemed to make the most sense. Yeah. But that would change though, man, because sometimes, right, and things were different, right? I knew people that would sell shit and then they would pull half of it out and replace it with canola oil. So you don't know what the fuck you're getting. So sometimes it would be a lot more. Sometimes it wouldn't. Sometimes I'd take, I'd be on for 3 weeks with just 3 cc's a week because I never wasted a syringe. It was pretty much like everybody I knew at the time. Like, why are you going to waste the fucking syringe?
Obviously, you're not putting a 3 cc, putting a cc in a 3 cc barrel. We know this.
Yeah. So, and that's just kicking like a motherfucker. I'm like, holy shit, this stuff's really, there's no need. The way I saw it, there's no need. There'll be other times where the same thing will be like, what the fuck? Yeah. What the fuck? I'm not even breaking out. And I'm looking, obviously, I mean, back then you're looking for side effects to make sure it's working, which is a fucked up way to do it. And not suggested now to anybody.
Yeah, no, I said it earlier, and it's weird about these kind of conversations because you worry that a young person is going to hear that and say, well, he started taking Adderall when he was 17, I should too. And that's really not, well, first of all, they're going to do whatever they want to do anyway. Mm-hmm. It's just, it doesn't matter. People are going to make their own decisions, whatever. But if they would actually listen to the Table Talk podcast and read the content on your website, that's stronger than any drug they could take.
Yeah. Well, everybody I know that started at a young age, in hindsight, would have started a few years later to be able to get 3 more years on the back end of their career. Everybody, right? Because you're going to make those big gains anyhow. Well, that's what makes no sense to me with the younger kids. Like you're going to make as good of gains natural in your first handful of years than you would on. Like you're wasting good gear that somebody else that really needs it could take, or that you need, just buy it and save it for later, because as you know, being around for so long, it's not always as accessible as people think.
I had a pretty good stockpile usually.
You learn, right? The stockpile came about because there was a drought at one time.
Yeah. And
then you realized.
I might or might not have had a shelf on, into a wall, shelves, anabolic shelf with micropoise and my Deca and then things you never really touch much. And then a shelf for, different kinds of tests, your different esters, and then I had bags of, ampules like, different sustenance things up, tacked up in some Ziploc bags, and a shelf with orals, your D-balls or antidraws, and shelf with some anti-estrogens and things, but those didn't ever get taken either. But I had a pretty impressive stockpile one time, but that was a long time ago. No, I'm just an old guy that's
taking TRT,
going to the doctor and get prescribed.
Yeah, I'd play around in the off season with different stuff because I could always tell within like 2 weeks, or else I could tell even sooner. Yeah. And if something was really good, I threw it in I had this FedEx box and it had all kinds of duct tape on it, and I wrote gold on it. I would throw it in the box of gold because I knew it was good, right? And then I would that would be what gets pulled out for the meat. Right, because this is fucking gold. This is the good stuff. Because it wasn't always around, And when it was around, I was too fucking broke to stock up on it.
Yeah, we do make some crazy choices.
Oh yeah, and
I remember Kennelly talking about how he kept it like a kitchen cabinet, like lined up. I used to like to look at my bottles all lined up, make sure all the good stuff, and we're all messed up in the head.
Oh yeah, yes. But today they have, and we weren't getting labs, right? Today they can get labs done. So there's a lot of other things that they can do, to be able to help. This is something that I've asked people many times, because if we had access to blood pressure medications that didn't make you weak as fuck, right? Then I would have used them to mitigate the side effects, but I also would have taken way more shit. Right? Because the reason you didn't take more shit is because the side effects became too unbearable. The lower back pumps, you can't fucking breathe. You're too purple. There's nowhere else to take it. But if I could have mitigated those side effects,
you would just
I would have used more. I know I would have used more, right? Which I wonder with the mitigating side effects, because that's a big part of what merit health.
The mentality wasn't going to change. So, I mean, you were going to do, you would have done more because your blood pressure, you would have felt better. Yeah, you're still the same person, you know?
Yeah.
You still make the same choices in those aspects.
Mm-hmm. When you think back through, what were some of the most memorable lifts that you ever saw somebody do competitively?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, saw a lot of big lifts. I mean, you know, obviously the obvious one that I don't even need to bring up because I wrapped his knees for it was Goggins. It was 1102.
That goes number one on my list.
Yeah, and but you know that story because you talked about it on his podcast, but you already knew it. But what was cool about that one, besides the fact that he had no plans on doing it, was I love him telling the story. I don't know if he told that day. I love him telling the story of what was going through his mind. So he certainly didn't have any idea he was going to go 1100 that day. So he says he unracks it, and he's like, oh shit. He says he's like, this is heavy as fuck. And he tells you that like it's not, and Goggins is confident, he's usually be like, I knew that thing felt like, but he goes, I took it off and I'm like, damn, this shit is heavy. And he started going down. He said, oh shit. He said he felt like it was just crushing him. He said he went down, kept going down, and he said, I'm taking it Friday way, So he said the whole way down, he's like, it ain't coming up, it ain't coming up, it ain't coming up. It's too heavy. It was too much pressure. I was about to bug him. Said, and then he starts to push up, and he said it starts to come, and then it's moving. He goes, and it's moving, and he goes, and I locked it out. He had the whole way down. He's like, no fucking way, this is crushing. So when you talk about his lift just being balls to the wall slow. It was the slowest fucking squat I think in his head, that was really like that was really how he felt too. Like it was fucking crushing him.
Yeah.
Man, it's a weird one because I've seen so many great lifts and you'd think I'd have one that was just popping into my head, but yeah, nobody tells me those kind of questions.
Yeah, that's the one that always pops into my head, and just because it was so slow as fuck on the way up, but it just kept going. But the atmosphere, the place was fucking packed. And
I love. I was there in New Orleans when Gary pulled 931, and Bolton pulled 933. Which were both world records, but the 933 didn't go on the total. I think it did. So Gary had the all-time deadlift world record for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But there was a time, this is so weird for people these days to hear this, but there was that time of life where you and I were around when only Danny Wobler and Kennedy had pulled 900 pounds. Mm-hmm. And in fact, Danny Wobler did it in 3 or 4 years before Kennedy at a local meet. You knew him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or know him?
Know of him, yeah. I saw him lifting one of the local. He's from around here too. I
mean, he had some impressive squat and deadlifts, man, at a young age. But so it's hard to believe. I remember when Powerlifting USA had in the late '90s had the all-time 50 800 deadlifters. And I remember looking at that and thinking, yeah, man. I was up in the high sevens by the time I was 22, and so I'm thinking 800. That's elite. That's top of the top.
It's huge.
And then you get the Roger Bannister effect, where at that moment, your brain starts slowing down. Like, okay, that's 800, but I'm looking. That's the opposite, Robert. But you start thinking, okay, the best are doing 800. So now all of a sudden 800 becomes something you got to get to. And it's like, yeah, it's struggling. And the 900 is not even in your scope because that's just a few elite outliers. Mm-hmm. So it's hard for me to see all these people pulling 900. And I think, I asked Goggins one day, I said, where do you think this is coming from? He says, the deadlift bars. I don't think it's deadlift bars. I think he's right, but we had deadlift bars. Mm-hmm. We had Texas deadlift bars in the 80s, And so it's not like all of a sudden, now longer bars, but the OQ bar was long. Longer bars allows a sumo guy to get out wide. And that could have an effect a little bit on that groove. But I would be interested to hear your opinion on what do you think, except for the Roger Bannister effect of everybody's doing it. So a young guy says 900 is not shit.
I think it's more that, because when I was coming up, the 1,000-pound squat was that. There were only a handful of people that were doing a 1,000-pound squat. And granted, that was single ply gear. And that number went up a little bit, when the gear got better.
Yeah.
But it was still, there were not a lot of 1,000-pound squats. Yeah. Now they're being hit raw, and anybody wearing gear can pretty much squat 1,000.
Yeah.
181's probably doing it if I looked it up. So it's, once it's done and it becomes in your head, like this is doable, and Westside, we had a 500-pound bench club, 600, he had all these different lists. And you wonder, what if the list was always just 1,000?
Yeah.
There was no 900-pound squat. There were no other ones.
Yeah, no, it's interesting to me. The deadlift one is a little different because, in my head, because it's gear doesn't really help deadlift, and because the human hand can only hold so much weight. Now, no one did hook grip. In fact, I'll even give if you ask Goggins this question, I don't even know if he's as passionate about this as I am, but I've told you earlier, if he learned the hook grip 10 years earlier, he would have pulled mid nines plus.
Oh, for sure. But he was no different than any of us. We tried it and we're like, fuck this.
Yeah. But I remember when he knew he had to do that, because Goggins was stuck in the 850s, 860s, and he dropped the bar. But he was so strong. And so he finally, I remember he went in the power rack and he'd get wrapped in, he'd pull weight and hold it. And he just acclimated himself to it. And next thing you know, he's pulling with a hook grip. But
well, the other thing with the deadlift too, over the last decade or so, it's become, I would say it's more popular now than the bench press.
You're right.
And so the European lifters or the foreign lifters always had better deadlifts than the Americans, because it was more popularized. Where now you go on Instagram, I guarantee you see way more deadlifts than you do benches.
No, you might have, you might be hit the nail on the head there, because I do think about that one sometimes too. It became first came CrossFit, and everybody was doing deadlifts, and then so it became like kind of a cool thing to do for everybody, more just general people. And they started posting their videos, and then everybody had to try that.
Then on the other side of that, how much did we really think about our deadlift technique compared to our squat and our bench? It's outside of, it needs to be mid foot. We weren't thinking about where to brace and how to keep our spine.
I thought of three things: dip, grip, and rip.
Yeah.
You grab that bar and you just vaporize the weight, as fast as humanly possible. I wanted it to be so blinding fast that the audience gasped.
Yeah.
I wanted people to go, oh, they've never seen a weight just boom, pop up that fast. But no, you're right. And now there's like now with probably not as much with conventional. People try to micro analyze the conventional pull, probably to a detriment, because it still is a pretty simple lift, but keep the bar close to your body, keep physics to your advantage, and pull the bar off the floor with some power. But I think the sumo deadlifters are technique specialists for sure.
Oh yeah.
And I made that comment something we're talking about earlier, but the
remember Nick Lapatola?
Yeah.
Right. He had that sumo, he was ahead of his time. Because if you look at how that was like, you'd watch that and be like, he's fucking doing a leg press. He had that, the way he was sumo, and it's how people are doing it now. And nobody else back then was deadlifting the way that he was. No, we were talking about sumo earlier, and I was talking about how, I think it was about 20 years ago or so, there was maybe a quarter century ago now. There was it doesn't sound weird to say it, right? It doesn't sound weird to say a quarter century, but there was only like, if I said, hey Dave, who pulls sumo? You'd be like, you'd probably like Mike Bridges and Hideki Inaba and ooh, that's a good point too. Would you know? Know who else? Nick Lavatola? No. I mean, O.D. Wilson? Yeah, I mean,
Asian women.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason that we kind of did it, because Chuck did it, and, the only reason that anybody at Westside really did that was to have the backup plan in case you got fucked up.
Yeah.
If your back was fucked up, yeah, if your back was fucked up from the squat or the bench, you can always sumo, right? So it was kind of like with the benching, we knew how to bench with the feet out and tucked, because your back could be fucked up and you can't arch, so you got to have some backup plan.
But yeah, really seriously, out of 13 men's weight classes, if you look back at those magazines back then, I think it was something like a 10 or 11 were conventional pulls. And the only ones that weren't were like 114s and 123s or something.
Lighter guys.
I don't even know men came in that size, but they do. I found out.
Yeah.
I found that out recently. But anyway, and there was a lot of you see Paul Kelso would have the Asian nationals or Asian worlds or something. They'd all be sumo, but because they had lower center of gravity, and they're really flexible in the hips and stuff. But yeah, so it's weird. It's weird that people pull so many people pull sumo. Now I never take the argument. You're never ever going to hear me take the argument that's bullshit or that shouldn't count unless they're going to change the rule book. But I don't want them to change the rule book, because my opinion on economy of motion is that the sport of powerlifting as it exists is based on Dave Tate learning his humerus length and his best leverages and his femur length and his foot placement, his bar placement, and trying to figure out how he can move the bar over the shortest range of motion most efficiently. That is powerlifting. So when people start, that sumo's bullshit, it shouldn't be allowed. Well, here's the reality. I can't fucking sumo. I'm horrible at it.
Yeah.
And those people that say that, if they compete, if you ask them, can I ask you a question? What's your best deadlift? They say 400. If you pulled tomorrow and you did 500 sumo, what'd you do? I wouldn't do it. That's bullshit. Okay, yeah, that's not. If they did more weight sumo, they'd be in a contest pulling sumo too. If they could arch like some of these IPF girls that move the bar 2 inches, if I could, I would have done it too. If you could, you would have done it too. We all try to just get our guts bigger.
Well, they never say it about a close stance squat and a wide stance squat.
Right.
They only say it about the deadlift.
And that's why I always thought, as soon as you start outlawing the sumo deadlift, that's bullshit. Well, okay, you should go ahead and say, well, you know what? Kenny Patterson's got pretty short forearms. He should have to bench close grip only, though. He has close grip with his pointer fingers touching, because he has to make it. It's not fair, because he probably still bench more, because he probably could tricep press that. But yeah, so you can't change a rule book in powerlifting based on anatomical structure, because the sport doesn't exist anymore. It goes away. It's no longer the sport. And in fact, since we're on a podcast, my belief as to why the sport of powerlifting is such a beautiful sport. Now, gear equalizes stuff, so I was able to have a better bench but it also took away from my deadlift, I just said. But if you look back at meets in the USPF from the early 80s, you'd see 12 guys in the 220s, and you look at their lifts, and you'd say, well, holy shit. Not one person has a single lift that's the same barely. This guy's got a bench, squat, deadlift, and it totals. But if you look at the totals, it's like 2105, 2099, 2090, 90, and 6-7 plates deep. They're 5 pounds apart all the way down. But you look, and they all got there in different ways. One guy was a monster squatter, shitty bencher, and a decent deadlift. One guy's a huge deadlifter. And so to me, that's what made powerlifting so cool, is that you take the man with the strongest upper body, lower body, and total body, and you put them together, grit, total body intensity, and you put him and you got a total of the strongest person. And this to me is powerlifting in a nutshell. That's why I love the sport so much. Yeah, so I just think that's what made the sport cool,
Are there any things that you think that you could have done to avoid the injuries, the long-term injuries, right? Because pulled hamstrings, whatever, right? Those are all kind of part of the sport, but like hip replacements, the wear and tear and all that stuff.
Well, you said something earlier about, and I don't remember what our context of the conversation at that moment was, but I mean, people used to always tell me my friend Mike used to say, John's got his half brief on today. That means I always had some knee wrapped around my upper thigh. It was always either, in fact, it was always an IT band on one side, or as soon as that healed, it was the groin on the other side. And man, I had more tape, more concoctions to wrap stuff with, and liniments to put on, and it's like people used to say, hey, be careful with DMSO, because whatever you put on, it's going to go into your, it does do that.
Yeah.
People use that for Phenoplex, but
Yep.
I'm sure you did.
Oh yeah.
But so dumb. I was like, well, that's cool. I'm gonna put Icy Hot on first, and then DMSO on top of it. Mm-hmm. I did that to freak people out.
Then Voltaren gel. Then the Voltaren gel on top of all that too.
And then Ecoblock.
Oh yeah, all of it.
Yeah. So anyway, that wasn't answer your question, but no, there was probably a point when I should have read my body better. But to me, my whole style of doing everything is so regimented. I eat the same things every day. I never, if I go somewhere to eat, I never open my mouth. I never have to, because hey, what's up? Yeah, same thing. It's good. I like my life that way. So my training was the same way. Sunday was squat day. We always squat on Sundays. I was always the first one at the gym. It freaked me out to not be the first person in the gym, because I wanted to be there, get my knee wraps rolled. If somebody was already there, I felt like I was already running a minute behind. I was never gonna be that guy walking in. I'm not that guy. I had to be there the first. I was always laying out my lucky squat outfit, the night before, the stuff you get your best lifts in lately, and so yeah, so I wasn't gonna miss a squat workout. I was gonna waddle in some way. Somehow I knew the night before that I was like, it was a lot of pain. I was already starting to, take a pain pill or I was doing something to prep. I was icing something, I slept with ice bags on or something, whatever it took to get up that next day and get that work in. So I went, and I'd get up in the morning. I don't know about you, but did you ever get really, you just, the excitement of going to train. I mean, like I couldn't brush my teeth in the morning. If I trained in the morning, I'd be gagging because I was so amped up. I mean, it was like, it's weird, but you're so excited to go train. It's like, and we were so depressed when the morning workouts were over. Everybody would just sit around the gym that we want to leave. And everybody just talk about, and you'd be like, nobody wants to leave because then you got to go start the day. And when you start the day, that's like, it means the best part of your day's over. And now you got to go back and join the real world again. That sucks.
Yeah.
So,
100%.
So why, to answer your question, what would I do different? I would have to not be who I am. I would have had to take a workout off or come in and just hang out, which then you feel like you're a bump on a log sitting there helping people. And I mean, I would have done, I would do that anyway. If I was hurt, if I was really hurt, I'd be in there. I mean, I'm never going to not be there to work on the monolith or something, but, yeah. So I don't know, I have, it's even like when I tore my bicep in the year 2000, this is one of my things I had on my topic list too, but the 3 stages of, there's more than 3, and I'm sure some actual person that studies this could tell you more than I could, but one of them is denial, and that made me laugh because you're talking about 275 pec, and you always got to try 3. Like my friend Mike would be like, dude, I think I should fucking hurt my pec, and I'd be like, so he'd be like, man, let me hold on a second, let me try this again. And man, it's messed up, and he'd take down to 135. He goes, man, let me see. He goes, it was killing me. I'm like, dude, stop. Yeah. What are you doing, dude? But I knew what he was doing. He didn't want to. He was denying it. He didn't want to face the fact that he didn't think he was injured. You're like, yeah, it was just a fluke. It was scar tissue. That was just scar tissue. How many times I said that? Yes. Well,
yeah, sometimes it is.
Yes, but you always have some excuse. But once you figure out that you have really fucked something up, torn something, whatever, you already knew. You already heard the audible tearing sound like paper. Then you were. Then you go through like a mild depression. That would be stage 2. I think it's pretty common stuff. People know this stuff, but and that's like your first is denial, then it's depression of like, oh man, every Sunday squat day and I can't squat because I just tore my leg or something. But the part that I love is I love the third part. And some guys just don't come to the gym for a while. Other guys just like, some guys probably quit. But I love the workaround and adaptation to, like, first of all, I immediately assume that everybody in the gym that I'm stronger than says, fuck yeah, John's injured. This is our time to catch up. Nobody ever said that. But in my head, they're all going, yeah, man, he's down. We're gonna bump this up a notch. So I immediately took it like, yeah. I'd be like, in my head, I'd be like, yeah. Now you cool, man. Have a good workout. You know, I'm happy, but don't discount my way back. And then, so I always played that mental game myself. So then I put together a real involved systematic workout that was revolving around my limitations. And I had one for my bicep was the coolest workout. I think Glenn Baggett actually passed it along to Chris Stuff when he tore his bicep. My one-handed deadlift, I used an Iron Mind vertical loading pin, and I had two box squat boxes that were 13 inches, and I'd use them and I'd turn them out just a little bit so that the 45 would fit right in the shape of it there. And even though I don't pull sumo, I had this in the cast, and I put a single D handle on it, and I turned my elbow out so I didn't want to tear this arm.
Yeah.
Keep this one safe. So I'd pull the elbow straight. And so I'd work up, and over that period of that 7 weeks in that cast, I got to where I pulled 5'10" one-handed with 45s. That was with a strap on. I separated those two words and said the same with a strap on.
Yeah.
And be careful around here. And I did a barehanded 450. So I did 10 45s there, barehanded, and then put a strap on that day and did 5'10". So the cool part is my rector stayed strong. And it was close enough to the center of my body that it wasn't throwing things too out of balance. So when I got that cast off, and they kept my cast on these days they have them off quick, but they kept me in a hard cast for like 7 weeks because they knew I was going to do some dumb shit. So they said, nah, we're keeping you. My cast kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller. But I kept working. So I went into the unilateral training. And so I'm a huge fan of unilateral training because I know this is true. You probably know it's true from an exercise science standpoint. But I used to be amazed that bodybuilders would be on stage and a dude would have no arm. And he'd be up on stage flexing, and he'd have two strided, decent sized pecs. And I'll think, well, that's weird. How does he do that? I mean, you can use iso tension, you can use like, stim or something, muscle, a Russian stim or something. But then I realized that the human brain is always going to keep you symmetrical. You're a symmetrical organism. So, if you train this side, now you're not going to, if you took a teenage, two twins or something, or one guy, you take one guy, and you had him work one side really hard and not the other side, he's not going to come out hyper blown up. It just won't let the other side develop. It'll just balance out. But so anyway, with that logic in mind, I thought, so that bicep tear, I had the deadlift up. The first time I ever put a bar in my hands after I rehabbed it straight again, I did 500 for 5. Just switched my grip, and my back strength, it felt like 135 was effortless. And same thing with everything. I was doing tricep rollbacks with 70s and 80s, just one arm, and I do a one arm incline press, but you have somebody at the hand, you have to stagger. So you like a 140. You do one arm incline presses. You do one arm shoulder presses. I was doing one arm lat pulls. And so when I got out of that bicep cast, my arm caught back. So I would just do, if I was doing 140 one arm, I would drop this to 100 or something and start at 25 here, and then build this up 10 pounds a week until I was meet him at 70 or something, and then go back up from there. So, but I use that technique. So I've used that a lot when it comes to injuries. When I had a pick line in a couple of years ago after having an infection in my one hip replacement, I a little careful about that, but I realized I could do kind of use a squat bar and do a good morning with it, with a pick line, being careful. I was a little bit careful about that one. And, But yeah, so I love, I love, I don't really want to be injured probably, but if I'm going to be injured, I love finding, there's a million ways to keep training.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I know you know what I mean, because you've done that same stuff. So
hundreds of times. The takeaway I'd have there is the duct tape and all that shit, which I was all a part of. There's a time and place for it.
Yeah.
So if I was to go back and change anything, if a meet was like 30 weeks away and I needed to use like duct tape and shit to be able to train, lighten the load and just rehab whatever's fucked up. And that would have put me in a better position.
Is that what you would do different or what you did?
That's what I would do different. Because that's not what I did.
Okay, got you.
I did exactly what you did and pretty much everybody else did. It's like, fuck it, I'm going to keep going. Yeah. And it went away. Yeah. You know, I can't say it didn't work. And I can't also definitively say that's why I have 2 prosthetics now. Other people will say it for me, 100%. But with my hips, it was a weird thing because when I got out of powerlifting, I'm like, thank God I never had any lower body issues. None. My shoulder's fucked. Yeah. Other things are fucked. No issues there. And then 5, 10 years, whatever it was, 6 years later, I have to get a hip replacement. I'm like, what the fuck? My hips were my knees were never a problem. Like, where's this come from?
I do have a theory about that too, though. When people talk about, and I think you agree with this. I think you tell me, but I think when people talk about all the joint issues nowadays, the idea would have been that, well, we train with gear, our joints are being protected, but I think it's the exact opposite.
Well, yeah, the load.
I mean, your joints being protected. It's not being protected from 1,300 pounds on your back or 1,000 pounds on your back, but it also was like, I think sometimes like over 52 weeks a year for 20 something years or 30 years, every single week, the lightest weight I ever would have put on my back, and like the lightest, shittiest off week, but maybe 400 and something pounds every single week. And that's the lightest possible week. So that was the week where you were just like feeling like a total, piece of shit. Cause you only went like 3 sets of 5 with 405 or something, and so I think just that overall, that's just a lot of years of just clanging and banging on those joints.
Yeah.
But I think the gear era did allow us to handle weights that were enough heavier that it put guys like you and guys like me and guys like Matt Smith in positions where our hip sockets got a lot of additional wear, maybe.
Yeah. Were there any topics you want to talk about I didn't bring up?
No, I mean, there's 500 topics, but we only have some time. I actually had 2 questions for you, though. Actually, 2 specific questions for you. And these are only because you're at Westside, and I've been curious. So I read an article years ago, and I was wondering if it's true, and if you were even there, that Louis took some of this stuff might not be true. I don't know. He took a bunch of guys from Westside over to Ohio State to a isokinetic Cybex machine, and tested quad strength, and that there was almost the exact inverse relationship between the guys who were the best squatters had the weakest quad strength and vice versa. Is that true?
This is true.
Were you involved?
No, that was before I got there. Okay. But yes, that was true.
Yeah, I asked because I like this story.
There would be a caveat. I mean, you got to keep in mind that they all squatted, sitting way back with, vertical shins.
Yeah. I know there's more relevance to quads. And I think what you're about to say.
Yeah. I mean, if they were,
it's got to come up sometime. It's not all back. It's got to come down and up.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing I would always throw out to him, because I did change my squat technique when I got there because I was closer and my quads were way bigger. And one of his things to me was, your quads are way too fucking big. It's an issue. And so, yes, I did change everything and my squat did go up. So I got to put that out there. But when he would say that, I would throw it back on him and say, have you ever pulled a quad? Like really pulled it? Like when you pull a hamstring? Like, yeah. I'm like, how was it to squat? You couldn't, right? So then your fucking quads are doing something. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. No. Yeah, I understand the benefit of the quads. I just thought that was a cool for a lot of young people, you're teaching how to squat, and they come in wearing the wrong shoes. You got to get them in the right shoes. They're wearing kind of spongy ass shoes. Their heels, they're coming up on their toes and doing all kinds of weird forward movements. And I still believe in I think Matt talks a lot about it, but I don't know if I believe in the 2-to-1 rule, but definitely that people are significantly stronger in the posterior of their body than they are the prime. I mean, that's just human beings. So when you're teaching a young person why there's a benefit in building that area, that's a good one to use. And I could throw the caveat in, but I'm trying to teach them a point at that moment in time. And there's also a broken leg story. That was true. It was on the same topic really, but somebody, I knew Lou broke his leg. I don't think it was him. Somebody had a broken leg or something. They had like all they could do was like some sort of good morning, maybe a standing good morning or a seated good morning. And when they got their cast back off, their squat actually went up. Is that a true story? Have you heard
I don't know about that one. I never saw anything like that. Okay. So it could have been before or after, but
it was I always try to visualize the guy who broke a leg and had a full leg cast doing any sort of good morning just because he has weight loaded on his leg in some capacity. But anyway, I've done plenty of heavy seated good mornings with impaired legs.
Yes.
Where you put in the power rack and kind of get under the same squat bar and take it off and do roll good mornings with it just while you're.
Well, as you noted, there were always ways to train around any injury.
So I have 5 million more things here, but we've covered a lot. I mean, we just had a good conversation. One more thing though. Is it true? Did you say one time on the podcast that the sport is currently around half female lifters?
It might be a little less now.
Okay.
But it's definitely over 40%.
And equipped powerlifting is?
Not a lot, because that becomes tricky because I'll use open powerlifting for the database and I'll download it every now and again, where now if I just looked at multiply and I compared it to years now when we competed, multiply still was not dominant. Everybody thinks it was. Single ply was. You know that everybody that's competed back then knew that was 70%, maybe even 80%.
Well, especially if you go worldwide.
Yes. So there might have been between like 3 and maybe 4,000 multiply lifters total at its height. Up until a couple of years ago, that was really like 2,000, 2,500. So I wouldn't say it really died. It did not increase with powerlifting, right? Now, when you go look at multiply, it might only be 800, but so many of them are using band shirts, which puts them in the unlimited category. Okay. And then that gets dicey on open powerlifting because most high school powerlifters are using some type of band shirt or a Widowmaker or something like that. Okay. So that shows this insane number of like 10,000 or something.
Lifters, yeah.
So it's the multiply lifters, I would say, if you're going what's defined as multiply, not having a band shirt is lower than it's ever been, right?
Cool. Well, that could have been asked you off. I could have asked it off camera too, but I was just that last one because I was just curious because the women, the half women or even 40% women, that's another cool thing to me, and it's cool because you and I remember when if you went to any powerlifting meet, if there was maybe a female in the meet, it was either somebody's girlfriend or wife that came along and did the bar or like 120 or something, and like other person that maybe was pretty jacked up. Yeah. And it was, but there wasn't a lot. So it's kind of a neat thing.
I mean, the first WPOs, it was like Amy Weisbrenner, Kara
was there.
Right. And then Laura Phelps. I mean, there was three or four.
Yeah, and they weren't even in the contest. They were just like guest invited, right?
Yeah, they're guest. Yeah. I mean, there were hardly any, and now it's. I would say it's close to half the sport. I'd have to go. It's been a while since I looked, but it got to a point where a few years ago, because I'm far enough removed from all the political aspects of the sport that because the lifters for lifters always cracked me up even when I was competing.
Yeah, for sure.
Because retired guys that haven't competed in 20 years aren't lifters. Like that's what I felt when I was training. You can have them running it, but where's the committee of the people who are actually lifting to be able to say, hey, look, this is what's fucking bothering us right now. Because they think they know based upon what they did 25 years ago, which is bullshit, because that's how we felt when those fuckers were telling us things.
Yeah, I never thought about, you know, I dog on it and make jokes, but I never thought about that. The lifters for lifters, that the people that are actually starting these organizations are already kind of retired and washed up.
Now, when they started, were still lifters though. Right. So I get where it came from, but at a certain point in time, you become too far removed from that fall in mentality and obviously you don't want those people running the fucking thing, but you need to listen to what they have to say. That's not on meet day. That's the other mistake that they make, is they want to listen to the lifters on meet day, like a week before, a week after meet day. It's like they're on a ton of fucking shit. They're not even thinking straight. Like ask them in the off season, you know, what they would like. But getting back to what I was saying, what I was getting at is all these federations, like where are the women on the board? Where are the women that are in these seats? Right? Because if they're half your fucking sport and they're not being represented in any way, just give it some time and they're going to make their own. And then you just lost half your base.
That's a good point. And to be fair, we both know they're going to run it better anyway.
Sure. Well, we all know that.
we already knew that. So. Get them on the boards now before they start their organizations, and everything will run a lot better.
Well, example, Loris Pro-Am. Right. Where's the men's pro-am?
Yeah.
Right. That's the WPO.
And Hermie runs it very, 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 and sells out like where they sell out in hours, like a matter of hours. She's got every slot filled, like, I don't know, 9 months before the meet or something. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So she's doing, no, you're right. But anyway, just a side question, you know. So.
How can people find you?
They can't.
Yeah, I know. I'll tell you what, he's not part of the bear community. We discussed that earlier.
Yeah, when you do your search for Jon Grove Powerlifter, you know, I've never been a paid personal trainer, especially related to powerlifting, because I share the view that mentorship was given to me by people, and I feel like that's what I would do for someone else. So you're probably not going to find me being an online trainer per se or anything. But if somebody had a lifting question, I would, I'd gladly answer it for them. If they reached out on maybe the North Georgia Barbell Facebook page or the North Georgia Barbell Instagram page, there's not much on there, but I do check the messages. Something.
Are you still writing?
I do it a little more sporadically, but I have lots of things I want to write. I haven't done it yet.
All right. Well, you got the blog on Medium.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for coming out. This has been great. Been looking forward to this for a long time.
No, it was everything I hoped it would be. It was a fantastic idea.
All right. Any final thoughts?
No, just keep doing what you're doing, man. Elite FTS has really grown. 27 years just recently, right? Mm-hmm. Anyway, I just want to say thanks for having me, and I love your motto, and I love all the content you offer people, and just keep doing what you're doing, man. All right. Thank you. We're done. Thanks. All content you see on this channel and at elitefts.com is created by, take a guess, Elite FTS. If you want to help support the content, head over to elitefts.com and pick up literally anything that you need to be able to get more jacked and strong.